I met a Gypsy.
Yes, I took one mushroom cap because I got 5 caps and they're like just under a gram. And
is that a hero's dose?
No, 1 gram's not.
1 gram's not. 5 grams is.
5 grams would be. So I think 2 grams is considered like a rec dose, like recreational, where you get some like visuals and shit.
Yeah.
And then once you start going like 3, 4, 5, but like 5's like hero dose.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, so I took 1 the other day.
Yeah.
Just like one mushroom cap, so like 1 gram, and it was fucking like gnarly. And I just went out and I was like, oh, I'll go run some errands, and I'm like, I actually went to I'll pull this up a bit closer. You can move that, so you'll be able to hear the difference.
Cool.
I like went and ended up doing some like bike work with a friend, and I'm sitting there just like, this is a lot. And you know how it comes in waves?
Yeah.
So I was just like getting these waves, and then one of the first times I did like a proper mushroom dose, I went from, I was just having the gnarliest waves of like crazy anxiety.
Yeah.
Most like uncomfortable I've ever felt.
Was that the first one you said that you did?
The first time I did it like a proper go, but we sort of fucked it up, and we ended up staying at this bar. We were in Noosa, and we were supposed to go bar while it sort of kicked in a little bit, and then go just like chill on the beach. But then we run into some friends, and then one of my friends was single, and he's like, I really like this chick, so I just stayed at this bar just fucking tripping. Like,
your friend was trying to pick up the girl.
Yeah, and he's tripping, and like, it was a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And yes, but it's funny. Like, I've actually spoken about, we're on, by the way, Molly Jane, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
But I've spoken about on the podcast before. I actually took a very, very, very valuable insight out of it, because I was sitting there and I just couldn't talk, and like that's my job, you know, like I'm a good talker, and I was sitting there and I just literally, I had nothing to say. I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I had this like full on I don't know, like anxiety around, like I felt compelled, like I there was like something that was like, you got to say something, you got to say something, you got to talk, you got to be that guy, like you need to be the one that keeps everyone talking, you got to be the vibe,
fill the gap of silence.
Yeah. And I couldn't do it. I was just fucked. And then I looked at myself and I was like, so I always, I guess like my own internal trauma that I would have had from being a kid or whatever it was that I talk too much.
Yeah.
So ironic in what I do now.
Yeah.
But then I would, you know, I'd try and tell these stories and be funny, and like I just wanted to be that vibe guy. And then when I was a kid, the other kids at school would be like, oh, I fucking talk too much, oh, talk about this, talk about that. And so that actually created like anxiety in my in myself, and that became something I didn't like about myself. And then for whatever reason, that trip made me not be able to talk, and then
made you sit in it.
Yeah. And then I ended up recognizing, I was like, this isn't something that you want to do. Like, you don't want to talk this much. This is something you feel like you have to do to like be that guy.
It's a trauma response.
Yeah. And I don't know where it comes from. And then when I would go forward in like social settings now, it made me feel more like introverted and be okay with it. And in the past, I just felt like I had to be that guy. Like I had to be the center of attention, make sure everyone's laughing and carrying on. And then it just made me be like, hey, this is not your responsibility.
It's not your responsibility.
It doesn't come from something you want. It's just it's just coming, you know.
It's almost like a people pleasing vibe in a way.
Yeah.
Like flipped a little bit, because you want to make sure everybody around you is vibing, like what you said, or is feeling okay, like no one's uncomfortable in the silence or whatever. And so you're going above and beyond to be like, I'll make sure everyone's fine, but really everyone is fine.
Yeah. And it wasn't like the thing that I thought that it was, is that like I just had this ego and I needed it to make myself feel good. And then I didn't like that. I looked at that. I was like, that's fucking lame, dude. Like, I don't like that. I look at people like Matty, and he's more of like a strong and silent type of guy. And I would look at that and I'd be like, damn, I wish I was like that, you know? But so yeah, it made me go a bit easier on myself and feel like, this isn't your ego that's doing this. You're not doing this to make yourself feel good. This is just something you feel like you have to do.
I feel like mushroom, it's really good if you have intention and like you want to do it to get something out of it.
Yeah.
You're not just doing it for the sake of doing it.
It's not a party drug for me.
No, hell no. It's spiritual.
Yeah.
It's shadow work. You're facing the deepest, darkest parts of yourself and you're like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
I suck at this.
Yeah.
Let's work on it. But also, I don't actually need plant medicine. A lot of people...
Have you done it before?
I have.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot of work on myself to the point where every time I meditate now, I'll have an experience like that. Like I can release DMT in my brain without any drugs at all.
Really?
Yeah.
So like hallucinations and stuff like that?
I
or
channel
just like
all the time. I see things all the time. Like I'm full. Full. Yeah, I'm very visual. I can hear things. I get channeled messages. So because, and this is because I worked on myself for so long. Like I, have gone to, I'm very extreme in personal development. Like I isolated myself for a year.
In what way?
Literally isolated myself for a year. Like I wouldn't talk to anyone. I just went completely inwards.
Yeah. Was that like no sex, no nothing? Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
And no alcohol, just anything that was going to be a distraction.
Yeah.
Where I couldn't sit and face myself. Like I just completely stripped everything back. So then I was just left with my innermost self. And now nothing can hold me or nothing owns me anymore. But it took a lot of work to get there. So what I found with plant medicine, I believe plant medicine is really, really good for some people.
Yeah.
Some people can do shadow work with it, get little nuggets like you did to work out how you can be show up as a better human in the world.
Yeah.
With less attachments. I feel like I've done that without it. So when I did try mushrooms once and then I was like, everything I'm thinking, I've already had this thought. Like it was just whoever I was with, I could just have conversations with them about what goes on in my head anyway and they could understand me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all it was. Like my brain goes there anyway. So for me personally, I don't need plant medicine, but I can see how profound it has been for some other people in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's that isolation thing is interesting. Like I pretty much have done the same thing. Like since February last year, when pretty much like the whole COVID thing happened, I'd say that's when I like really like the really clear insights about like the illusion of the self and the fact that there isn't free will. And before that, it was like this process of understanding it, but there wasn't like an experiential component. It wasn't like a...
So let's tell the people your beliefs around free will.
So I'll introduce you a little bit more first because we just started rolling. So Molly runs, so you had a meditation app that you developed.
Yeah.
What was that called?
Bloom.
Yeah. And then how long, like what was the sort of process of that?
So
it just gives people some context before we get...
Of who I am.
We got time.
All right. So my name's Molly. I'm in the tech and mindfulness space. And I guess that's why you've got me on to just kind of delve into mindfulness and, spirituality and the meaning of life and why we're here and all of that. And I love talking about this shit. So thank you for having me.
No dramas.
I got into the tech and mindfulness space after I quit my full-time job at Bondi Sands. I was their social media manager. That's the tanning brand.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I was with those boys from the beginning. I was their first employee.
Sick.
And I helped build their social media presence. So I have an understanding on how to build brands.
Yeah.
I may be witchy and woo-woo, but I also am smart.
Yeah.
People don't think so, but I am. So once I finished that, I'm trying to give like a quick snapshot of everything. So I did a lot of personal development work while I was at Bondi Sands.
So where did that come from? Like the need or the compulsion to want to dive into that? Because you can you can go through life being completely ignorant and there's no need to do it or no want to do it. And there's some people that so like for me, I look at the self as this process that we're not in control of. It's a mix between your environment and your DNA. So it's like literally you get nature and nurture, it goes here, and then the self is like the thing in the middle that's like your interface with the world. And there's the external world and then the internal world. And then the key thing for me in that is like suffering. So if there is that, the self is what produces suffering. And if there is enough suffering, then I think that is what kind of points people in that direction of like wanting to go into self-development. Like, you know, there's, and I know so many people, they just don't really feel the need to it. And it's like they're being this self, and it's like rad. They don't really overthink shit. They don't really...
I'm jealous of those people.
So, but for me, it wasn't the case. And so for you, like, was there like some kind of suffering that you had to...
There was. So I've always kind of been into this sort of woo-woo shit, for lack of a better word. Like, I'd see spirits when I was a kid. Like, mum would take me to energy management healers and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, like from the word go. Like, I was just all about this. I knew there was something more to what I was seeing.
Yeah.
I could feel it. Couldn't prove it, but I could feel it.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is what I say on all podcasts, my version of rock bottom. That's what kind of led me into this. So everyone's version of rock bottom is different.
Yeah.
Their pain is just as valid and just the same.
Yes.
You know, your goldfish could die and you might really love your goldfish.
Yeah.
Mine, my marriage fell apart.
Yeah.
So I was with a guy for 14 years. So all of my adult life growing up, I had built a really codependent relationship on this dude. And
was that through your fault
both.
Or his fault or
both.
Just
Both, but I take full responsibility for my part in it. And then basically without going, like, I try to have grace and not really talk too much about what happened, but he really did some damage. And
which is easy to do.
It's very easy to do, but I was so blindsided by it all, and it was just like a whole new person basically. So from that, my whole life got, like, just to put it into context, like half of me just got stripped away. Like, I didn't know who I was in this world. I just didn't know like what I was meant to do. But at the same time, even though that was so painful and so bad, it was perfect because it then propelled me into being who I was truly meant to be on this earth. So in a way, even though he was the biggest dick ever, I could go and high five him now and thank him because I'm making such a bigger impact in the world because of that. So everything's perfect. It took me a long time to realize that, but I'm so grateful for everything that happened. So my version of rock bottom, it was a real process over about 2 years, and I was at the point where, I was going to kill myself many times.
Really?
Yeah, and I've spoke about this on podcasts before. I'm open about this. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't. I didn't know how to put one step in front of the other. Yeah. And my situation was a bit unique because I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone about what was going on for a full year. I was kind of muffled. So that's where the isolation happened.
Right.
So I had to kind of pretend everything was fine, but it wasn't. And like it was just it was a shitty time. But so basically the personal development kind of started because there would be days when I couldn't get out of bed. So I would, if you go through my notes in my phone, I'd go back to like 2017 and I would see a note and there would just be like 3 things to do that day. It would be brush teeth, have one meal, and have a shower. Like was the start of my personal development journey, like really looking at myself because I couldn't physically do anything. And if I didn't set goals like that for myself, I would have died. So, you know, as each day kind of went on, I would get stronger and stronger. And then maybe like by month 3, I would look at yourself in the mirror and say affirmations for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
and it just kind of kept growing. And then before you knew it, it was like, teach yourself how to read astrology charts, learn how to channel and do tarot cards. So many, it just kept growing, and anything that I could have done, I did. And I went there, and I just, my favorite thing in the world is looking at myself in the mirror and working out where I need to grow in any way, and just facing the darkest parts of me head on and just being like, yeah, let's go. Because I'm not perfect. No one is. But I love when I find those bits where I can improve, because it's such a challenge. I'm like, great, let's do it.
Fuck, that's intense. I had no idea that was the level. Because, you can't, I don't think that, there has to be some kind of turning point or some kind of intersection that you come to where you do get forced to grow and change. And I mean, for me, it was I'd always I just have a different mind, a real different brain, and it was just one of those things that I always struggle with it. I was so insecure without thinking I was insecure in any way. It's the strangest thing when I look back now. I'm like, fuck, dude, live your whole life just really, really caring about what other people thought, and there was so much Maddie, we were talking Maddie before, and what he said about action and motion, in my head that relates to motion is when the wheels are going in your head, but there's no output. There's no actual action to that motion. It's just the wheels are spinning, and that was my fucking life. And I remember I lived in America for 8 years, and I spent my whole 20s there, and I just had the most insane job. I was a filmer for Red Bull, and I traveled all over the world. I'd go to fucking 30 countries a year and parties
chicks.
It was the
shots.
Best. Yeah, it was the fucking
You were
best.
living your best life.
But the whole time I was just not there.
Unconscious.
I was not present there at all, and I can see it now.
How many people could...
That's most people.
Everybody. Yeah. That's good on you for realizing that. At what point was it? Were you hang on?
I was in a relationship, and I was essentially I was having the same problems in my life, and then I think relationships are a really good
mirror.
way. Yeah, because it is a mirror.
Yeah.
It's just exactly that. What you give to somebody is how you feel inside, and the way I would react and get angry and bad moods and just weird. I look back at myself now, I feel sorry for my ex-girlfriend. There was she had her shit as well. And it's the same deal. I fucking love the girl.
Yeah.
And I think even knowing what I know now, it's still, I don't think we were supposed to be together. But, I just, and then the problem I had with her, I had with my last girlfriend, and and it was me. And I kind of, I got to this point where I was like, all right, we've got to be done here. And then, I just I reckon it would be I've never really said this, but I reckon every year or two, I'd just have a legitimate fucking breakdown.
Yeah.
A hardcore breakdown. And just where I was just fucked. I'm what am I doing? What am I here for? The same problems keep happening. I can't stop thinking these negative thoughts, and and objectively, your life looks incredible. And I mean, that's the biggest thing that I've learned as well. It's a thing that Sam Harris says, is how do you know that the person across you isn't enlightened already? And it's because unless you can see the self and the talk that's going on inside the brain, that everyone just looks like they're enlightened,
Absolutely.
They're just sitting there, that you can't see their thoughts. There's this entire internal reality that's completely invisible to you, so everyone just looks like they're fucking enlightened. And that's why we all think man, how can he just sit there and chill like that,
Yeah.
And inside my head is just this fucking cacophony of just terrible shit. And so I had that relationship break down, and it's funny, when we were DMing, I said that it's the action sports and the stuff I've done my whole life. I would always think about I would be desperate to ride my bike. Desperate. And when I lived in America, it was surfing and then golf. Like I just had these things that I was obsessed with and I didn't really know why. And one of the big things about starting this podcast was like I'd do these interviews and I'd be asking these guys like, what are you feeling? Like, what's it like? Do you go away when you're writing? Do you, you know, and I was sort of, it was funny, like 2017 or 18, there was like a clip I reposted on YouTube the other day. And because it was funny, I'm like, I'd love to listen to myself talk before I had this, you know. and I was asking these questions about like, why do you think we do this? Like, is there something on the other side of you know, like if you're world champion, you know, winning that world championship, or if you're Robbie Madison jumping 300 feet, like what is that draws you in? And yeah, so it was just like this kind of gradual process, and then I read Waking Up by Sam Harris, and then I started doing that app, and it was more the theory. I really needed to understand the theory behind things like free will, behind things like the self, the concepts within you know, Buddhism, and I literally spent 4 years just like
educating yourself,
only reading that sort of stuff, and then I could kind of like reverse engineer those questions that I was asking people about, like, where do you go? Like, what are you doing this for? And I have just come to the conclusion that in everyday life, the things that we do and we crave doing are the times where we just lose that internal monologue and the self does go away. Totally. And it's so integrated into our life that we just go, oh, that feels good. Yeah. I want to go party. I want to fuck. Yeah. I want to ride. I want to do these things where like the conversation stops and I'm in the moment. It takes you out of your mind. Exactly.
And that is meditation.
Yeah.
So everybody I talk to, like from owning the meditation app, everyone's like, I can't meditate. I can't just sit there. And everyone thinks you got to be like this.
Yeah.
But you don't.
No.
Meditation is getting out of that train of thought in your head. And that can look like going to the gym. That can look like running. I know a lot of runners who get into like this state, and it's just, you know, and there's so many other ways to do it. So that's why I want to change the concept around meditation as well, and show people that they're probably already doing it one way or another.
Everybody. When you watch trash TV.
Yes.
And you just sit there. Yes. Like that's why people watch Netflix.
Totally. I need to do it because I need a break from my brain every now and then. So I'll turn on Housewives of Beverly Hills. Yeah. Catch up on all the Erica Girardi shit. And then before you know it, my mind's numb and I feel like kind of cozy and I could go back into my train of thought after that. Yeah, meditation is Housewife of Beverly Hills for me.
It's any time, and that's the thing for me is like just trying to, when I talk about this stuff, it's like you just start looking for that in your life. Like look for those times where you, like for all of us, like the people that listen to this, like so many people that listen to this podcast are like ride or surf or fucking BMX or whatever.
That's meditation.
It's just like, just notice. All you have to do is notice the time where that voice goes away, and it might happen for, you know, a couple minutes if you're doing a long moto or you're in a race. Like for me, like that's one of the things where jiu-jitsu as well is probably the most like vivid form of that, where it's like we did these 7-minute rolls and like,
and you have to have laser focus.
Yeah, you just so there's two different types of flow states. There's panoramic flow, which is like, I don't know if you've ever traveled and you've seen just like a beautiful vista. Yeah. And it's like the view, just like, it's almost like it takes your breath away. Yeah. And you just, for a second, you kind of go. That's like a panoramic flow. So it's so open and so wide. And then what you would experience in like jiu-jitsu or surfing or motocross or shit like that is absorbed flow. Yeah. So where you're so focused, it's so detailed, and it's taking so much of like your processing that this process of the self just kind of falls.
Totally. That's like Kundalini Yoga for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So explain Kundalini.
So Kundalini Yoga,
isn't that what Russell Brand's like super into? Yeah.
I feel like that changed my life.
Really?
Yeah. So Kundalini Yoga it's a mixture of breath work, sound and movements of the body that you can kind of put together into sequences called kriyas, and they can reprogram pathways in your brain to new ways of being, living, experiencing. So in that year that I had off from life, or whatever we want to call it, the year I went inwards, I did an abundance kriya every day for a year. So it was an 11-minute meditation where I did this thing like above my head, chanted every morning without fail. And so the reason why I know this works is because when I quit Bondi Sands because every cell in my being was made up different. And I just knew I did not fit in this spot anymore. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
Nothing was bad, but I had expanded so much. I just was like, this feels so restrictive to me. I cannot be here anymore. So I quit without any money. I had one more pay round left. I didn't know what I was going to do. That was April in 2019. April 2019. By August 2019, I had launched a #1 meditation app in Australia.
Fuck, that's insane.
It is insane. And I'm not putting it down to just the abundance kriya that I did for Kundalini, but it did play
it's like a pathway.
It is. And it opened up an abundance mindset to me more so than I'd ever had before. The right people, because I was like magnetic. I was working on my aura. Like, everybody has an aura.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Your vibe, like, it literally does. We don't get taught about energy management at school, and we really should. Like, there's, if you go, sometimes you might be feeling really calm, fine, you go to the supermarket and all of a sudden you just hate everyone because you're picking up on all their energy. So Kundalini Yoga really helps work on your energy field, and whatever you need kind of gets drawn to you. So I swear by Kundalini Yoga.
And so what's that look like? Like, what's a session of that? I mean, not to demonstrate.
Yeah, so it depends. So if you, like on Wellweb, for example, my new business, and on Bloom, I'm sure they still have Kundalini Yoga on there, because we sold Bloom. Yeah. Did I say that at the start?
I think so.
I don't know. So we did Bloom for a while, then we sold Bloom, and we're working on Wellweb now, which is a video streaming platform for all things wellness.
Yeah.
We wanted this to be a place where there's so many options on there where you can work out what your meditation is.
Yeah.
And how you can get back to your center, because what works for you might not necessarily work for me. So it's just a safe space where people can go to explore.
Yeah.
So Kundalini Yoga is on there. We have ones where it's like, it might be a kriya for energy, or a kriya for immunity, or a kriya to break addictive patterns. And they might be like a 3-minute session, a 11-minute session, or a 22-minute session. Like, it's kind of up to you how long you want to do, or you can do a full class.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy. Afterwards, like, I do a full class for an hour and a half, and I am just like on another level.
Yeah. So the most, like, I guess I do just my daily meditation. I'll do like 10 minutes in the morning.
Is this your morning routine?
Yeah. So that was one thing too, where I had some kind of, like, I guess, just fucked up ideas in my head around like how I should be and what was like free, a way to be free. And I was like, I work for myself. That means I don't have to have a routine.
Who put those ideas in your head?
Fuck, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Just the way, you grow up and you have this influence and this influence, and even, your parents telling you have to do something, and then you thinking that you know better than your parents, so you're literally just going to do the opposite of what they, But yeah, so I'd be like, all right, routine is like the killer of freedom. So I never had any kind of routine, and like that's why I literally got called Gypsy by everybody, because I was 20, I was 18, bought a camera in my van, drove around Australia, filming motocross, and then moved to America and traveled. So like there was just at no point, there was never a home base. There was never, I didn't realize, but that's the shit that was like fucking me up, like I didn't have like a spot. I was just so all over the place. But yeah, so then, and the other thing too, I'd never been alone. And fuck, you need to be alone.
Yeah, you
like,
do.
Everybody needs to be alone.
Totally.
And you need to like know, you need to know what comes up for you, you know? And I was definitely just like, whatever, what's like the word for it? Just like the impulses. So to me, it was like, now looking back, it's like, if you've got a thought and then that thought comes to you and then you're instantly attached to that thought, that's an impulse. Like if you just, if it gets delivered and then you act on it instantly, that's not really like a thought, that just is an impulse. And I think that if you don't know that that's something that, or like how your kind of brain works, and that's the same for everybody.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, so I would just be like impulse. You kind of just like bounce around. So I was slowly starting to figure these things out, and then, you know, when I broke up with my ex, I was like, I'm going to be alone, live in my own house by myself, and it was just like, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't really know, like, do my own washing. It was just a fucking shit show, like, across the board, essentially. But I thought I was killing it because I'm like, my fucking podcast is going good. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so to get back to routine, I just really was like, I'm going to do this routine thing. So I just get up in the morning, I make a coffee, I read for an hour, then I do my meditation, shower, and then do my work day. And then right before bed, I do my morning meditation sitting. I'll treat it like a practice kind of thing. And then at night, I'll just listen to the same meditation. Do you meditate
to a guided meditation?
Yeah, so I use waking up.
Yeah, okay,
so that's
cool.
why I get asked a lot.
And
I've really just subscribed to Sam Harris's way of thinking. Like, he's a neuroscientist. There's no, like, as far as the woo-woo stuff goes, like, I'm fucking fine with it. Yeah. But for me, I'm just like, straight to the point.
And I think people need that.
Yeah.
I think people do need that. I don't need that because I trust my intuition enough now where if it says to do something, I'll do it. And it doesn't bother me. But people need this, especially people who are just kind of getting into all of this as well. Like, you know, I feel like if everybody fully sat down and asked themselves the question, like what's going on inside here? Yeah. Like they would get curious. Yeah. And I feel like, it's just the noise and the routine of like just not being alone and just like go, doing all this, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually just stop and sit with yourself, you'll realize there's a lot of questions there, and it's fucking scary sitting with yourself. Like, it is. I get it. But it's also my favorite thing in the world to do now. So, for example, 2 days ago, I got so pissed off. Like, just because you like this, you can't avoid human emotion and fucked up shit that happens. So I got so pissed off at the world the other day. I was like, why am I here? Like, this is so shit. COVID, all this bullshit. I was just like, I'm done. Not like literally done, but I was like,
you're just off it.
I'm off it. Yeah. I'm so off this place. So I then knew, okay, Molly's pissed off for a little bit. Blocked out the rest of my schedule for the day, literally locked myself in the room, got angry, journaled about how fucked up the world was, cried for about an hour and a half, and then I was like, I engulfed myself in all of the emotions. I was like, and then the next day I woke up, I was like,
I feel great.
I was like, geez, what a wonderful planet we live on. But that's the thing. If you sit with yourself and feel something fully instead of trying to put a Band-Aid over it or distract yourself by picking up your phone and having a scroll, if you actually just sit there with it, people will realize that it comes and goes so quickly and it's actually not that scary. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that the thing as well is when you literally everyone says it, and I was a person that said like I can't meditate, like my brain's fucking crazy in the way of and everyone's is in their own way, but like even today I thought like I left the gym and I've got like this jiu-jitsu bag. It's like this fucking long duffel thing and you got geese. It's a shit show. So and then at the moment I'm dealing with these sore shoulders, so I'm like going, I'm like, how can I just like easily just get this bag in? And I'm like throwing the bag, thinking about like the way I push this and the angle, like all this is just happening so quick, and that's my whole fucking life. Everything I do, like that's the way that I'm thinking about shit. So I was that person that was like, the first time I sat down to meditate, all I could think about was the fact that I was sitting down to meditate. And there's no like you don't
I mean, I guess you do get good at meditating, but like that's kind of like not the goal. Like the goal is to just like sit and observe how your mind does work. And then over time you just see like the patterns, and you see the things that you need to connect to and that you that you don't need to connect to, and then it gets easier to drop those thoughts, and then you can, you know, over time you get to places where there just isn't really anything for a while, and then
but then you also build up a toolbox of not coping mechanisms, like, but I guess it is, but not in a bad way, like of just tools that you can use to deal with life.
In daily life.
Yeah. And there's so many healthy tools out there as opposed to just going and getting like fucked up.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah, that's true. It is pretty fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, for me, it was just like this process of like learning, and for whatever reason, like, so I think we started sort of talking about before we recorded, but I was always really into philosophy, and I really wanted to, I love philosophy, and I was very into like metaphysics, and like always I was just obsessed with, from like a young kid, I was obsessed with what reality was. Like, what is reality? I always had this like weird, I guess just like fascination with it, and I grew up going to like a Catholic school, and not for 1 second, like literally not 1 second. There was no. I was just like, oh, okay, cool. This isn't what it is.
It's
like,
same.
I don't
the whole
know
time.
why,
I remember going to church like Ash Wednesday and having to eat the bread. I was like, what are we doing? I was like, Mum, I don't get it. And even like, I remember once you had to sit down and like confess your sins to the priest. I was 7. Like, I didn't know what a sin was then. I was like, so I remember it vividly. I was like, oh, Mum asked me to sweep the floor and I didn't. That was a lie. Because I
just had to make something up.
I couldn't think of anything, but they forced me to think, and I was like, this isn't right. This isn't sitting well with me, so I'm exactly the same.
And I had a sense that like I wanted to know what the universe was, where we came from, but to me it was always like consciousness, like what is the conscious experience, and so I remember being young, and I would have this theory where I was like, if you put a rat in a shoebox, this was like my 10-12-year-old brain. Love it. If you put a rat in a sealed shoebox, there is, and that rat was born in there, and it grew up in there, and it just got its food and water. There is no information inside that box that could ever tell that rat what is outside that box. And if there was like a sound that he heard from the outside, that would just be this like internal thing. Like you might know, oh, that's coming from outside. But again, you've got no information. Zero. Literally zero. And
that's so smart.
And I was always like, we're just a rat in a cage. Like so for me, the question of God was never like, it was pointless to me, because I'm like, we could never know. It's like you do algebra, but you don't get given the values to substitute for X and Y. Like if you get that, you can only ever get like X plus Y equals C, and then you can fucking rearrange that 100 different times, but you only ever have those values.
I know what you mean.
So for me, it was always that question about the thing was like reality, and then it kind of moved to consciousness, and then I read, so I'd always just read like philosophy and try and understand that, and then sort of like metaphysical stuff about like what reality is, and then a lot of physics is essentially like trying to figure out what reality is.
It's great. We need people like you, because I don't have that urge to understand all of the jargon and the technical stuff. I just like trust it.
You feel it.
I feel it, and I trust it so much. So I like when people like you come around, because I'll be like, what is going on in my brain? And how am I getting to these altered states of consciousness? How am I connecting with all of these different frequencies? Because that's where I'm at. Like I am.
So you've got like the experiential side dialed in.
Yes.
But in terms of like the understanding and the
no
theory,
idea. No idea, but it's still so real to me. And the experiences that I have in meditation all the time, like I would love to know how I get to these altered states and can communicate with things on different
So when you say like communicate, like what's that look like, or what's that feel like?
Okay, so the way I would describe it is, you know, like psychics who can talk to dead people.
Yeah.
So everything's frequency, everything's energy.
Yeah.
And whatever we oh god, my brain's gonna go into a million pieces. So I guess it's like, but then it goes, oh my god, there's so many layers to this, because it was like what we were saying in the DMs, like essentially everything is us anyway.
Yeah, so it's all coming from like one place.
It all comes from like one light energy source, whatever. But anyways, from that is all different layers and different levels of it.
Yeah.
So I can tap into different levels and different frequencies on it. So there's a thing called like 3D reality, which we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Like a 3D reality, you can see, feel, touch, have a full range of emotions. This is the frequency that we're on.
Yeah.
I can tune into a different level of frequency and there's a whole nother reality there.
Yeah.
That's basically what happens to me. So
that's what people explain when they're on DMT. I've never done DMT.
That's 100% it. So when people say aliens don't exist, blah, 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 aliens don't really exist in the 3D, or dead people, angels, whatever, don't exist in the 3D, but they do exist in other frequencies. And I've just become an absolute master of tuning into different frequencies and realities, like a DMT trip, basically.
Yeah, that's insane.
It is insane.
So I guess like where I'm at with it all, and I think that there is this, so I don't really know where you'd start with this.
I know, this is the problem.
So it's like
much.
So I think that the first thing that really kind of connected for me is that, and like you mentioned Alan Watts before, and you talk about like any Buddhist guy or any kind of, so this is the craziest thing for me. This is the thing that I love the most, and the bridge I'm trying to kind of bounce between, right? So there's like a guy like Joshua Bach, who's like a one of the most brilliant mathematician, physicists, like in the world, right? He says the exact same thing about consciousness as the Buddha.
Right.
So 2,500 years apart, and they have the exact same, outcome of like what consciousness is, how we interface with reality. And so you're more on this camp, you know, that the Buddha got to those realizations just by sitting, and then you see what reality really is. And then you get a guy like Joshua, who is a German scientist, and he's got to that purely through just understanding science and physics and how we interface with reality.
This is so great.
I'll send you some links to this guy. Like,
this is so good.
I actually want to do a video. Joshua talks about free will.
Yeah.
And he breaks down free will in like the most ridiculously scientific, like it's fucking incredible.
But people need that. And the reason why people like me on this end love that is because most people just look at me and they're like, you are a freak. Like, what are you even talking about? And I'm like, but it's real. But I don't have like the vocabulary or the concepts. I'm like, it is. Like, I can't deny what's happening to me. Whereas this dude here, they're the ones that I want.
He might not even bother. Like, I actually really would love to talk to him. The podcast that I heard him on was Lex Friedman's, like one of my favorite. It's pretty much the only podcast I listen to, actually. And he's a scientist as well. He's like develops AI. So the funniest, well, not the funniest, but like the crazy part about it is like there's a group of people that are trying to engineer what consciousness is, and then an integral part of consciousness is self-awareness. So like wherever this consciousness is produced in a life form, there's a self that kind of comes along with it. And so I'll backtrack to just give a little bit more of these like childhood thoughts kind of. But I would have these thoughts as a kid around okay, so you've got matter. And then that's just like random atoms and ions and quarks and protons and electrons, and they're interfacing together in their spin, and then they group together, and then essentially it's like chaos and order. which is like a Jordan Peterson thing as well.
Yeah.
But that's essentially what's happening in the world. And so there was this point where there was nothing and it was everything. There was this big bang and it exploded all of these particles out into the universe. It created the universe. That thing's been expanding forever. And then that was complete chaos. There was no organization in that chaos at all. And then over the billions and trillions of years, that matter is organized into order from this chaos, right? So I remember being a kid and thinking that there's like these layers, like you said, to the universe, and it starts out as like raw materials essentially, and then those raw materials turn into matter, like a table or organized.
So we're going
whatever.
up like 2D,
So
3D, 4D, yeah.
And then we get into life. So then there's life that organizes from matter. And essentially like, so there's like entropy in the universe. So like if you leave something alone in the universe, then there's like this entropy that's there. Like things break down. If you leave a fucking apple on a table, it'll break down. Like that's like a property of
which
the
is
universe,
also like
right?
thoughts as well. Like if you give thoughts, if you think about something, it's there.
Yeah.
If you don't think about something, it's not there.
Oh yeah, it's just
Same thing
in and out.
with actual things. Anyways.
So then you go from matter to then life. And what life does is life uses things that are experiencing entropy to sustain itself. And then, so that can be basically like the lowest level of life is like one cell. And then that cell can use things in the universe that are experiencing entropy to then keep itself alive, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to this other layer of life that produces a conscious experience. So there's like this awareness of having the experience, and I used to kind of think that was like a exclusive. I was like, that's what makes us special.
Yeah,
it's actually not what makes us special, because like my dog is having an experience.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
I just want to quickly add to that.
Yeah,
so this is what I say with the different levels of consciousness or different level, whatever it is, however you want to define it, same thing that you're talking about, the levels and the layers. There's no wrong or right. There's no better or worse. There just is. It's like, for example, I might live on level 11 and someone might live on level 2. Doesn't make me better than them.
That's the same experience.
We're just on different levels. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah, as long as there's like an awareness of having the experience. So then, and then this is where this chat with Joshua was so fucking incredible, because he talks about it in like a AI sense, right? So there's like this thing that's in the world, and it's got like this like set kind of goal, and then he uses like an example of a thermometer. So a thermometer has this set point to where it's like move to create zero deviation between. So as the temperature gets hotter, there would be like a deviation. So if it's like you've got the red shit in a thermometer and it's like goes up to 30 degrees Celsius, well, that has to come up so that there's like zero deviation. So that's a thing that is like doing, so in a sense, that's like some form of life, right? Because it's like a thing in the universe that can have a set point and then move to achieve that goal. So the difference is like there's no model that's required. There's no, it doesn't have to be, it only has to exist in the present moment. There's no care for the future. All it has to do is just minimize set point deviation in this, in whatever that set point is, right? So then you look at something like more complex forms of life have these more complex set points. So like for my dog, for example, it's like he needs to food, he needs to shit, he needs to like he wants to find a mate at some point. So like there's like more complicated set points, right? So then that creates this requirement to create models of well, not of the universe. So it just needs to create models within those set points, so that there's a certain level of deviation, which would be more than a thermometer, and there's like a set point in the future, like I'm going to need food at some point. So that then these models are created, and so you've got this conscious awareness and then this processing in the brain that creates models of its universe to then allow it to like minimize set point deviation, right?
And it keeps stretching and stretching and stretching.
So the more complex the model is, you get basically to us to where it's like we've got to this point where our model extends to the universe. Where like we're trying to map the entire universe because we kind of have the ability to do so.
Yeah,
so there's like this these models can get created in such detail because we've got a large brain and we've got blah blah blah. So it's essentially it's just like a computer that's got like, this is a set point that it needs. So let's say you got a robot and you want to teach it to the set point is like get the ball in the net, and it's like it's a soccer robot, and then you give it this consciousness, like the level at which it would create these models would basically be at the mercy of like whatever that sort of set point was. So we've got all these crazy set points in our modeling of like happiness and love and so we
which
create
is
like
all
these concepts
individual for every person as well. Like it's so different and so vast, everyone's experience.
Yes. So then you've got this conscious experience, which is what we are, and then from there the next level, it seems like if you look at the way that the world is going, is that we're trying to re-engineer consciousness. Yeah. We're trying to solve like this hard problem of consciousness, and then that's what kind of like artificial intelligence would be. So if we can map consciousness, then maybe we can. So there's like this level. It's like there's this force within. That's kind of as woo-woo that I'll get, is like it seems like there's this force within the universe that is trying to just create continuous complexity, and we've got to this level where we're trying to like model our own universe. So that's kind of like in my head I'm like, all right, that's like this spectrum of life, from no life to the most complex form of life, and then I guess where it kind of
life as we know it too.
Exactly,
like it's infinite. Like that's just putting a cap on our human experience when there is even more of that as well. That's
the model that we can make. Like that's the most complex, models that we've got. And there's, a guy like Joshua Hill, he's trying to create these like insanely, there's something with the set point, he's trying to minimize this deviation to the point where like he's trying to figure out how the fucking universe works, like all up, So
he'll never get it.
Nah. But maybe,
should we call him and tell him?
Yeah, just like stop now. But so, and then in terms of like, this is where I guess the meditation side of it comes in combination with science for me, is like when I figured out, or like when I learned that we don't interface with reality. There's no, like you talk about like the 3D world that we can see. So that is the dream that people like Alan Watts will talk about, or like the Buddha, that everything's a dream, it's all an illusion. It is real, like we are here and we are having an experience, but what we're experiencing a model. We're experiencing like... I
can't believe how deep we're getting.
Yeah.
Are people going to be able to put up with, like, I just laugh because I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do people understand this?
I don't know.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, see if they can. Well, you only got to sit and look at it for long enough.
That's what I mean. Well, even if it's just one or two nuggets that we've said and people are like, hang on a second.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have started using like waking up and meditating and stuff as a result.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
Right. But so when... like science knows that we don't interface with reality. Like what reality is what quantum physicists, they go down and down and like smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, like these base layers of reality. So we're not interfacing, like we don't see the outside world. We see a projection internally of the outside world, right? And so what we actually are is just the awareness, like just the thing that is having the experience. Like we just are the consciousness, and then everything else comes inside that. So like to explain that to people, the easiest way is you've got 4 photoreceptors at the back of your eyeball, and then different wavelengths of light will show you different colors. That's like the color spectrum. So red is the longest wavelength of light, blue is the shortest wavelength of light. So with these 4 photoreceptors, and that's why some animals see in black and white. That's why some animals can see like crazy vivid colors, and then that's probably why when you do like psychedelics or DMT and you have like those insane visuals, it's like there's something in the chemical that's kind of like over cranking those senses. So you're getting this data that is our normal model is seeing.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then it's over cranked. There's like this different input that's sort of coming in.
Yeah.
And it's like essentially when the light hits the back of your eyes, for then when it gets turned into this internal projection, it's amplified or it's nullified.
So I've got a question because I feel like you understand it more. So how does that happen to me without psychedelics?
Well, so I think that what it happens is like it's sort of at the level of the self. So like when the self kind of gets away.
Expanded.
Yeah. No, so I think... I'll keep explaining. I'll try to get there for you.
Keep going.
Yeah, once you kind of can really understand that, you go like, so I'm not seeing, like how I would have thought before is like your eyes are just a window from your head, and it's like yourself, like who you are, is just like looking out of the glass at this world, and like you're inside and the world's outside, and that's duality. That's like subject. I'm the subject of experience, and the subject inside the world, and the world is out there. So I'm in here, the world's out there, and that's how it feels. So that's what it feels like to be a self, and that is a like a real feeling essentially. But the problem is when you connect with that and you don't have the understanding that all this is just this dream-like process that's going on in the brain. And so you kind of realize that, and then you're like, oh, okay, so when I open my eyes, I'm not at this one-to-one interface with reality. This is what this is my brain. I've got this like processing unit. Essentially it's like hardware and software. So it's like this software that's embedded in this hardware substrate, and then so once you kind of see that, you're like, oh, okay, so the internal, then what that does is that like shatters the barrier between the internal world and the external world. And so how it feels and this is different in different cultures. Like there are cultures that don't really have a self. There's cultures that don't say I, me, my. Like this is not like the standard human condition.
Yeah.
This is like the Western human condition. But that's what kind of breaks down that barrier. So then you go and you think like a water bottle on the table. You're like, oh, I'm in here, and then that's out there. And then with, I guess, this line of thinking, or like how things actually are, is like, that's a model of the world as I'm seeing. That's like the best model that I can create. And it's there to predict things. Like there's a really great book by Lisa Feldman Barrett, and it's called 7.5 Lessons on the Brain. And the first chapter, or the first half chapter, is your brain is for predicting, not thinking. So basically we have like this process of prediction that's just constantly going on, and you're like caching all of these predictions. So I come in here, I know my studio is going to look the same when I come in here. Like there's like this prediction that I like, so you just like build this reality in your head that you kind of interface with. So the self that you feel, like the me, the internal, like the one that gets angry, the one that gets sad, the one that gets happy, the one that gets frustrated, that is a part of that process and that modeling of what your reality is. And so for me, you sit and you meditate and you think, so how you kind of, when you start meditating, you think the thoughts are on the inside, the world is on the outside. And then slowly it sort of just breaks down to the fact where the self is a thing that, and so like that water bottle is like, it's in my conscious experience, I'm like aware of it, and then I look away and it's not there. So it's like, and yeah, that thing is in reality and it's still there, but in terms of the way I experience it and how it arises, arises and then it goes away. And the self is the exact same thing. And so when whatever thoughts you have about me and my and I, they're happening in the exact same way that water bottle is happening. And that's where we kind of, how you feel like it's all one thing, then that's what it is because it's all, you have consciousness, you have your conscious experience of the world, and then you have the contents that feel that conscious experience. So you close your eyes, there's like nothing there externally, but you have this internal contents of consciousness. But then you open your eyes, the world appears, everything's full.
Yeah.
Your conscious experience is, things are permeated in that conscious experience.
Yeah.
And there was like a really, really good meditation the other night. The daily meditation on Sam's app changes every single day.
Yeah.
And so I'm just laying in bed, and he says like, okay, feel something that's like, is there some tension in the body? Is there something that's sore? Is there any pain? And then it's like, now focus on that. Is consciousness, the underlying conscious experience, changed, or is that just a part of the contents within that? So at the end of it all, it's like, what's left? What's the thing that you really are is just like this awareness, and everything else that's happening, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, your job, what you got to do, it's all just this complex modeling that is basically kind of just like based around this set point. And there's no, so how it feels is like, it's like the monkey riding the elephant. I'm the monkey and I'm pushing this thing around. I'm pushing my body around. I'm responsible for the thoughts. I'm responsible for the feelings. I'm the thing that's that is making this meat suit do its thing. And I'm the author of my own thoughts, and my impulses are mine, and my problems are mine, and all of it's all this me. But when you kind of sit with that, it's all just this contents that is within your experience.
So do you believe that awareness, when you bring free will into that, you believe we don't have free will? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because, can you explain that to me?
This one is a bit harder to explain.
Okay.
How people say is like, it's not that it's wrong, it's that it's not even wrong. It's like we don't even really, we feel like we experience free will, but we don't even experience it in the way that we think we do. Like it's, and so how that is intertwined with the self as well. So that's like, that's sort of two sides of the same coin. So if you had free will, there would be like a self, there would be like a monkey pushing the elephant around, So like there's an easy kind of a test that you can do with it is like, name a movie you've seen ever. This is as broad, and this isn't a trick question. There's no right answer. This is as broad. This is as free a decision.
Am I answering?
Yes, this is
Moulin Rouge.
Okay. Have you seen Titanic?
Yeah.
Why didn't you say Titanic?
Because I just thought of Moulin Rouge first.
But were you free to think of Titanic, or were you just like delivered Moulin Rouge and then you just said it?
I was delivered Moulin Rouge.
And so was there any freedom in that process at all? Did it?
Because it came from consciousness, my answer.
And what it kind of came from is like, remember I said at the start, is like you've got the experience, like you've got your DNA, who you are, like your that makeup, right? And then so you were born in this place, and then you've had all these experiences, and maybe Moulin Rouge is your favorite movie because you and your mum watch it together. But like you could tell a story about why you picked Moulin Rouge. But at no point do you know why you actually did. Like you're sort of just telling yourself a story.
Yeah, I like
so
this.
Free will is this is the same as the self. The self is a story about who you are, who am I, this is how I feel, I have this type of man. And you can explain it based on the way you've acted in the past and the way that you've felt in the past. And like the self is kind of just like this memory that we kind of
I get
have,
it. I understand exactly what you're saying. And I feel like you've just broken it all down and described it and flipped it in a different way than what I would have explained it. But at the end of the day, even if it's the same thing, like my thought process might not be the exact same as yours, and the words that I use to describe what I'm describing might not be the same as yours, but essentially what I feel like you're trying to express and what I'm trying to express is the same thing of, so this consciousness, there's something that comes from deep within inside us that tells, like, that almost not speaks for you, but does for you. Like it's coming from the most purest place. And to me, my thought process prior to you talking about this, probably that is free will. But when you flip it from that place, it's not free will, because but
it
then
feels like free will.
It feels like free will, but then, like, we could then say that is essentially us anyway.
Yeah.
So if we're making that decision from the purest, most like, if that essentially is us, is that free will?
Well, I just think that, again, that's like a story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know.
It's like it's just this story that you've kind of told yourself about the decision. But in terms of, like, so for something to be real, it has to be able to be, like, implemented.
Yeah.
You know, and that even the self is like, and there's a trillion ways to do this. And this is why Buddhism has been taught for literally thousands of years. And there's so many ways. And all we have is, like, these metaphors and analogies. But it's sort of to try and kind of get at the same thing.
I love being challenged like this. It's so good. Like, I just love thinking and just breaking it down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty. And I don't have many people I can talk to about this stuff.
Yeah, right.
You know? So it's kind of cool to have some. Yeah. Go team. But, you know, even, and to, you know, to get at the free will thing again, it's like the things that you say, like, you weren't free to pick that movie, even in the sense that you weren't there was no freedom of choice in you, even, or like me asking you that. So, like, you only answered that because you were prompted. It was like, what we are is just this, like, moment to moment experience, but we're connecting with it. It feels like you, and then when you give that answer, it's like that feels like an answer that you would give, but it's just this, like, moment to moment, and everything that you say as, like, a you and a self and as a person is just predicated on the experience that you had before and before and before. And if you follow this train all the way back to your birth, it's like, what was your first thought?
Yeah.
You know, and every thought that you've ever had in your life is just a result of the thought that came before that.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you like, at what point has any of this been your choice? Like, you didn't choose to be born, you didn't choose your parents, you didn't choose of the influences, you know.
Totally.
Like,
I agree with you. I feel like it's not morbid, but, like, when you think about it like that, like, it's like, it's very emotionless. Like, it's...
Yes, that's kind of the problem.
Yeah, it's very... not robotic, but you know the vibration of the word I'm trying to say. Like, it's like... It sucks, like, the soul out of it, even though it is soul.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just me giving meaning
to
it. Like, so I get it. But it's all very interesting. But, like, I guess... then what the point is, and this is, like, the lesson that I've kind of learnt the last couple of days, like, what's the point of all of it then? Like, what is the point of all of it? Like, some days you feel like you've got this mission and you want to change the world and you want to do this and blah, 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 but that's just all the meaning that I'm giving.
Well, I think that's the answer. I mean, I don't know. You know, like, I don't know what.
But I think, because I literally journaled this last night. I was like some days nothing means anything and I'm just, like, doing my thing. The next day I'm, like, full body yes, tingles. I'm like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change the tech space and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But then the next day I don't give a fuck. Yeah. And I'm like, what is it? And whoever came over me, which I guess was me, you fucked up my thought process on everything now. But, like, whoever it was that came over, they were like, whatever you give meaning to holds meaning.
Yes.
So there's no wrong or right. Like, just give something meaning and enjoy that. So my thing today when I woke up, I'm like, fuck, like, we may as well just have fun. Yeah. Like, it's so serious if you really think about it. So, you know, we may as well just enjoy it and not take it too seriously and just have a laugh. And we're very lucky, really, if we think about it. If we adjust consciousness, like, we're not a rock.
Yeah.
We're not like, we get to experience a full spectrum of emotions, from sadness to despair to like the happiest and joyful. Like, that's why I guess we choose to have a human experience, is to come here and experience.
Well, you don't choose to
I
have a
know
human experience.
everything I say now I'm questioning because of what you said, but I'm just living in my own little,
But so for me, like, the way that I say it is like, the meaning of life is to make meaning of life.
Yeah.
You don't get a choice. Like, you're alive. You're having this experience, right? And so this is why this kind of insight, like the insight that you've had and the insight that I've had, it comes from suffering. And suffering is only a product of the self. So this, like let's say you're, what's the fucking point? That's the self. That's like this concept trying to explain, the way that you're experiencing reality. You're obviously interfacing with it on a certain level. Like, you've connected to some kind of thought, right? And so in Buddhism, they call it skillful and unskillful. So it's like, the thing is that, and I do have a couple friends that I talk to about this kind of stuff, and I'll have friends and they'll say like, so what is, how much do you feel like this self? And I'm like, fucking all day. Like, literally, that is this thing that can't be avoided. Like, I'm sure, and this is why in Buddhism you've got people that go and like literally live in a cave, and then they lose that self, and then they just stay there, just continuously. But even then, they'll be kind of coming back. It's something that, again, it's like this process that we don't have control over. So there's no, and that's why a lot of times you'll hear in like Alan Watts and those guys, they'll be like, don't try, don't strive for this, don't. And it's paradoxical, and like all of the advice that is in like Buddhism and all of these kind of different spiritual practices is so paradoxical, is because it's like, there's no self, but you can't help being a self. Like, everything is this.
It's a head fuck.
Yeah. So, but for me at least, it's like, okay, the insight, and that's why, like, the personal development and stuff. Like, I read business books. I read psychology books.
Because you've still got to exist in this world.
You don't have a choice.
No.
The self that you are is going, like, who you are is like you need to not think of it as like this concrete thing. It's not like this rock and it's unchanged. You're the unchanging center of your experience. It's just a process, and like you call it like selfing. You're not a self. You're just selfing constantly. It's just inputs coming in, and then this is the process that deals with the world. Like, I have to be Jace that gets a phone bill I don't actually get a phone bill, shout out to Boost Mobile, but I get my electricity bill, and and then I gotta be that guy, and then if a cop pulls me over, I'm that dude that is I live here, I fucking did this, I was speed. You have to be this I, right? But the point of it is that you have this insight around the self not being there in the way that you think it is, and anytime you feel any kind of suffering in your life, then that's just you connecting to this self. And then if you've got this insight of like, I'm just conscious experience, right? Then you break that attachment. So it's just like no
resistance.
Exactly. Like, I just trying to step into just being like aware of how reality is. And again, it's like, this isn't the things that are coming and going. Like, I'm not connecting with, I don't need to connect to these things. It just is what it is.
Totally.
There's nothing to be done here. There's nothing there's no free will. There's nothing to be done. So if you know that, it just doesn't make sense to struggle. It doesn't make sense to stay attached to things.
Absolutely.
So that's the practical application. And then it goes one step further. And the free will thing, it feels morbid, right? But it's not. It's the basis of compassion. So if you can say like there's no free will, how could you look at a drug addict and think he could have been any different? You know, how could you look at you get in a person in like a road rage situation and go like, well, he couldn't be any different.
Yeah.
So it's just this basis for compassion.
Yeah.
And when you know the suffering that the self can produce, then, and you know that everybody is a self, and even the fact that like you still suffer, I still suffer, the fucking Buddha still suffered at times.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is tainted with this brush of human suffering, and that's what the practical application is of this, is just like, you can't not be compassionate for those people, and you can't not, and the thing is like, you know, and then you just extend that out even further of like, they're just that's another thing that's appearing in your reality. That's your they're in your world. Like, you have to love those. Like, it doesn't make sense to hate anything that's in your conscious experience.
Do you think you still have a choice in moments?
Yes, you definitely have choices, and choices still matter, but you're not.
Well, they can shape. I guess the choice is still coming from. Yeah,
but they're built off, again, like all the experiences that you've ever had. So if you start having this experience of like not having a self, and you're not attached to those things, then it makes the choices, like I can choose. I now make choices to be compassionate to people. I make choices now to tell everybody I love them, even even though they're like fucking strangers to me, you know what I mean? So because it's like, I can now make those choices.
Absolutely.
It's just this knowledge, and it's the process of selfing. You've kind of gotten to a point where new information can be delivered to you.
Yes, and it can make your human experience a lot better. For example, this is what I was dancing with like the last week. I'm like, I feel like nothing in this world owns me. Like, I'm not attached to anything. I am a full sovereign being. I just don't have attachments. Like, I get it. I understand as much as I can understand. Like, I get it. Nothing, I won't have resistance or, you know, nothing.
Aversion.
Yeah, nothing really bothers me. But then I was like, but the only thing that is still like trapping me, I guess, is the system. The system that we're in. And I'm like, like I got so angry at the system. I'm like, I don't feel right in this world that I'm living in. But that was the biggest mirror and lesson of all, because I really had a choice to let the system make me suffer or not. Or I could just remove myself or whatever and
the
attachment to it and just kind of be in it and go back to my like deliciously cuddly feeling self that I feel. And that's how I woke up today. I was like, nothing can bother me anymore. I'm like, you know, but if you don't have those moments where you're doing your head in and you're crying or you whatever, these moments of clarity aren't as clear. I feel like you need the contrast in order to remember. As well.
Yeah, no, I 100% would agree with that.
Yeah.
And so like, where would you sit now on like, because attachment's a big one. And so this doesn't just extend to suffering too, because like things that make you feel good can also like, essentially it's like striving is like the term for it that they use in Buddhism. You've got like striving, so things you're like trying to get, and then aversion, which is like things you're trying to avoid. And essentially like that's what the ego or the self is, and that's something I was like had really fucked up. And I think that's the thing that probably got me to this point, was I kind of just like hit the ground. I feel like I thought about my ego for years, and then I just hit like a basement where I was like, I don't want to, and it came from the podcast essentially, because it's like, okay, I'm doing this thing and I'm putting myself out there and I'm trying to make it as big as possible, because it's like, if you're going to do something, like you should just do something well. That's how I was raised. And it feels good. Progress feels good. And again, I think now that's probably to do with like that set point. You know, you've got like this point that you're trying to get to, and then progress towards that point is going to feel better. So I was having these thoughts around like, fuck, I'm trying to put this podcast out and I just want to do a good job. I'm not trying to be famous. I don't think I'm cool. I don't think I'm better than anybody. Like at no point in this is this like an egotistical thing. So I would like try hard to not have an ego. And then it was just like, I kind of was thinking, I'm like, that's so fucked up. Like if you try to not have an ego,
that's ego.
That is like massive ego. Like that's probably even worse.
Yeah.
So then you get to things like Alan Watts saying like, don't try, you know, and then you're like, what the fuck? Like, how does that, you know? So that was kind of, you know, that ground floor.
Totally. That's my business philosophy as well. And Chloe, my business partner, and I, we say alignment first and then like we don't force anything. If something's not right, like I'm not saying we don't try, like I still am here giving it my best shot, but I believe this is where the masculine and feminine energies, that's not a gender thing by the way, come into it. So my masculine is when I start to put things in place and, you know, more of the doer, whereas the feminine in me is more of the flower. And that's when that not free will part of myself comes out, and I feel like that's the right answer.
Yes.
I feel like whatever, we are always making sure we're stepping more into our feminine and flowing. Like, so in the morning, my morning routine, it's quite masculine in the sense where it might be I block out an hour or 2 hours, but within those masculine walls, I'm quite feminine. I can flow and do whatever I feel like I need to do, but as long as I have that masculine set.
What time do you get up?
Whenever I feel like it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have
like a set time.
No. Like I'm really, but I feel like the masculine and feminine, the feminine is where the kind of answer comes from, like with business, like the not trying, so to speak, because it comes from like deep within. The answers
and you just don't bother. So like how I would describe that is that like you're gonna do everything anyway, right? And so there can be this like self that interrupts the process, and that can be like doubt, fear, like all of those what you'd call like unskillful. And then you could also and I've run into this, like this is probably like my biggest one is with the podcast is like, all right, we did 1 million views on iTunes last month. We did 4 million on YouTube. It's like, all right, this needs to be the new normal.
That's so good, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
It's like, that needs to be the new normal. We need to do that every month, and then you don't do it the next month, and you're like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, so that's the thing that I try and avoid, is more like the striving aspect of it. And in jiu-jitsu, like, when am I getting my next belt? When am I going to beat that guy? And you need like a certain amount of it, but I guess the point is like I feel like the self is always kind of just a interrupter in that process. And when you talk about layers, that's what I feel like at the bottom of it, like, you could live your life completely in the moment, like on autopilot, and you'd still do your shit, you know? But then there's like, you launch in a new business, and it's like, you could do that. Because I kind of think of it in like, there's a best version of you. Yeah. And that best version of you would not experience the conversations in your mind that would be like unskillful thoughts, and on both sides, whether it's like striving and the egotistical side of like wanting more or less. It's just like pure acceptance of things as they are, and then you're just going to do what you're going to do. Like that's why I never plan questions for the podcast. I never like it's just
because it's almost like a channel that's coming through anyway.
And you can think about that in
I'm just putting on some lip gloss.
That's fine.
My ego.
You can think about that in as well, like and this podcast has been really cool for that, is I can visibly go back and watch. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I said. Yes. I have no idea what I said. Yep. I wasn't free to say that shit. Like, I just said what I said. If I make a grammatical error in this sentence, I don't know why. I didn't plan to do that. And I think about in terms of like a bad mood. Like, if you really had free will, would you ever be in a bad mood? If you were free to think and feel, you would want to feel good all the time. Well, you wouldn't even want to. You just would. Yeah. That's not even a question. No, that's not a choice. You're right. Yeah, you just fucking. You'd be like, oh yeah, no bad moods for me today.
Everything's sweet.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah. So I don't know. I've lost my train of thought. We're on a tangent.
We've really gone on tangents. It's fun though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just cool to, I guess it's like cool to talk
break
about.
it down. And that's what I feel like the main thing you've done there is, as I said before, I'm thinking the same thing, but your concept of not having free will, to me, that was my concept of having free will.
Yeah.
It was the same thing.
Yeah.
But you just attached a different meaning to it to what I did, but essentially it was the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It was just our meanings behind it was different.
Yeah. And so I think about this too, right? And this is another thing where, so the problem with this free will argument, and I think people get kind of like fucked up on it in a way, is that they then go like, that is the birth of nihilism in people, where they're like, oh, well, everything's going to be how it is. I got no choice. And then on the other side of that is like fate. Where they're like, oh, well, whatever's going to happen will happen. It's already been written. I've got no...
What do you think about fate?
Well, so if the universe... I think about it from like a scientific perspective.
Great.
So like if the universe starts from nothing and then it expands and then it's been expanding throughout time since its inception and it will go on infinitely... then where we are right, like you and I right now in this moment are at like literally the edge of the universe. There is it's not been any moment that I can think of in the future that has not happened yet. It is, and randomness.
I love that so much.
Well, and randomness exists.
Yeah.
So there can't be fate with randomness, and randomness is observed in science constantly. Like the jury's out on randomness. So for fate to be scientifically, for fate to be a real thing, there would have to be no randomness visible anywhere in the universe.
What about soul contracts and things like that? I guess this is where it comes into the layers, right? Oh, God, my brain. You're really making me think. And I think a lot. But I feel like this is like just
a different perspective.
It's different, but it's like the middle bit, like the actual essence of it. But I probably live in the layers more. Yeah. Because to me, I still believe that you would have like soul contracted things that you decided before you came into this spacesuit. And you were like, okay, so there might be some things like having that relationship that woke you up. Yeah. Or you might be contracted to have a kid so you can share your knowledge and pass it on to a little guy and he's like this woke dude walking around. Like that might be a part of your contract. I still believe there are some major things for your soul that can happen to help you expand.
Yeah. And so I would say that you could be 100% right. Yeah. I would say that is information that is like not in the box. Yeah. So you could be completely right. And so like there could be a soul, there could be this like, I mean, I don't really know much about souls, but like all that shit could be, a thing. It could be that I guess that's the thing with this way of thinking is like it just stops there for me. Like there's and everybody could be right. Everybody could be right. There could be a God. There could be Allah.
Well, it's whatever you put your attention on, it becomes something, I guess. Yeah.
And again, you probably don't have a choice in thinking the way that you think.
So I feel like then maybe because I believe the reason why I've got to where I've got to on a multidimensional level is I've expanded like the DNA in this body so much, and I've upgraded the DNA in this body so much, or woken up all of my not all of my DNA, but a lot of my DNA to access more parts of myself. Yeah. Like I feel alien sometimes. The way I think, the way I can do things, and I've never talked about this on podcasts.
No, I'll go in.
Like no,
I've been talking for like an hour and a half.
No, but that's what I mean. Like it can be quite lonely as well because nobody really gets it. And I'm not being a victim. I'm not a victim in any way, shape or form. And I love being alone. But
I feel lonely in this too, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's just a very expanded way of thinking, which is not better or worse. I wish I didn't think like this sometimes because my brain's like, like even your perspective today, like it's fucked me up. Like I'm going to go home and just think about this all night. But like I feel like everybody has access. Like, yes, we might not have free will, and I understand your perspective, but the layers kind of after that, I feel like we can play with this human experience more than what we are.
Yeah.
And we can access more of ourselves, our multidimensional selves. Like, do you believe in like past lives and stuff like that? No, but I feel like that falls within the layers of what you're talking about, because I truly do believe in past lives. I believe,
and that could be 100% correct.
Totally. For me personally, I believe, so with meditation, I can like tap into all past lives and bring basically the best parts of me from past lives and future lives into this body right here, right now, to be more of me in this exact moment, because I don't believe time exists. I believe...
Well, time doesn't exist.
Time doesn't exist.
No.
So past, present, future, you can access every...
Well, it's like the eternal now, like that is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and so what we have, again, this comes back to like the models of the universe. Like we have we have concepts. Like, so we can, so like, this is something so you don't understand, in my opinion, you don't understand something if you can't explain it fully. And there's some stuff that can't be explained.
Yeah.
So you get a pass on the stuff that can't actually be explained, like past lives or whatever. It's like no one fully, there's no concrete way.
Totally.
So with concepts, like, it's like this, these repetitive, this is testing my own limits here. But so like in jiu-jitsu, there's the concept of doing a triangle choke means that you have one arm in of a triangle that you make with your legs and one arm out. So you could do that 1,000 different ways. It's like a concept. You're like, if you can trap someone's head and one arm inside your legs and close it as a triangle, you can choke them with a triangle choke. And then for the like concept of like an underhook. So you go on the far side of a person's body. If you put your arm underneath their arm, then that is like an underhook. And if you do it on the near side, like this close side here, that's useless. That's not an underhook. So it only works if it's on that side. So they're like concepts, right? And then they can be applied in in all these different scenarios, but it's like a consistent sort of theme. So what we have in our minds is like this ability to create these concepts around these experiences. So there's like I have this experience of control when I hold this person with this certain way, which would be, you'd call it an underhook. So you're just like the process in your brain is like giving it a label. And then that label is consistent. So we have this ability as humans, and that's like a part of the modeling process, is to create these like concepts that we they kind of work across the board or like in multiple situations. I don't know how that related to where.
Well, I guess that's the layers of making. The expansion I was talking about. But then I guess the concepts expand as you expand as well. And I guess what just makes me and my experience unique is maybe just a lot of humans. There is humans who have explored this, but I push boundaries more. Like I feel like I got the human experience down all right, so I'm like, okay, I want to explore more concepts because I kind of feel like I understand this to a degree from my level of wanting to understand it, but I'm like, how much further can I go? So yeah.
And so how do you feel now, like before you kind of had these experiences kind of, or like this way of thinking, like how does this change the way that you have relationships now? I need a very open-minded team around me, but I believe everyone who is around me now just accept me fully for who I am. What happens to me
and my experiences are so real, I can't make it up. So the people who are with me just get it. I can have conversations like this with every single one of my people. There's no surface level conversations being had unless I choose to have. Well, now the free will concept has fucked me up. Like everything I say, you know what I mean.
But you have to be. That's the thing. Is like you have to be
now,
yourself.
and because I understand like energy on a quantum level, and how like the layers that I'm made up. Like I understand energy management, and even like partners now. Like sex is such a sacred energetic exchange with somebody. Like I don't like my whole concept of everything's changed. Like I'm so particular about where and who I give my energy to now, and what I open my energy up to, because I know how much of a detriment it can be to my being and my experience here, based on the way I want my experience to be here, if I open up to energy sources that aren't for my highest good. Yeah. So relating to people now, it's difficult, but I feel like when you're vibrating at this frequency, you kind of just like put in front with contact with people who just get it now. Like I don't really, there's no one I really can't have this conversation with.
Yeah.
Because I just am so me now with conviction that that's what my surrounding is.
Yeah, and that saying, like, your vibe attracts your tribe, like that's such a great way of looking at things, you know, and you really are the people that you surround yourself with too, because again, it's like, and again, you can make a choice to be around those people based on like the knowledge that you've accumulated, and then you choose. You're like, okay, I only need to be around like these good people, and it's like there might not be like a freedom to that choice, but it's like I think that's why, you know, if you I always try and think about when something comes along, like you get an idea, you get something sort of comes to you, it's like, okay, is that being interrupted by this like process of thinking about it and having self-doubt? And so that's the thing
by the ego.
So that's the thing that I'll like kind of try to avoid. And you're like, you just slowly work your way into, you know, like you and Chloe, you guys obviously have like this great relationship, and then the people that you have around you, and then the partners that you choose, it all sort of slowly falls in line. And I put this down, so this will be, I'll bring it back to the 3D and tangible things that people can do to get to this level of awareness if they choose to. Having that morning routine, taking that time every single day to do something like that, I feel like that's the filtering system to know when like that impulse or that thought comes through, if it's from that pure place or if it's tainted with like thought, or like is it a projection, is it a pattern, am I thinking this way because of this or whatever. By me doing my morning routine and getting to that clear space of nothingness, like whether that's riding the bike or surfing or whatever, by doing something like that every single day, it gives you the opportunity to hear what comes up in your head and know whether it's coming from a pure place or whether you've thought like about it a million things. Like I use, this is a good example. I tested this theory once. I call it my intuition. So that purest voice, that's my intuition, and I trust my intuition. So I remember once I was in Melbourne and I was like, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get Nando's. And then the second voice in my head was like, don't go get Nando's. Go try that Asian place. There's this new Asian place in, I don't know, it was Seddon or something. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then I was like, oh, and I like was outside of myself. I was like, there's two thoughts here. The first one was the first one that came to my head, which I would class as my intuition. The second one was a narrative I was talking over. No, actually, Millie, it'd be so nice. Why don't you go try that Asian one, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to see which one's right here. So I chose the Asian one. And I went there and I got the worst food poisoning of my life.
And I just remember I was like vomiting on the toilet and I was like, okay, so the first voice to me is always my intuition.
Yeah.
The first one that doesn't have any other words around it or thoughts around it. If I sit in like a place of calm, centeredness, the first thing that comes to my head without a narrative over the top of it, that's my intuition. That's the most purest voice. That's the one I follow.
Yeah. I would completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah. Like you didn't get, again, it's like you didn't choose to, think that Nando, like, you know what I mean? You didn't, it wasn't like, and again, you kind of go back to like that movie reference, right? So for there to be free will, when I asked you what just name a movie, like there couldn't be a more free choice in your life.
I know, it
like,
was scary.
There's no stipulations.
I didn't know where to go.
It doesn't have to be your favorite movie. It's just a movie you have seen. And then you said Moulin Rouge, and it's like so this again comes back to like the self and free will. They're both the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So for free will to have been there, what would have had the requirements? This would be like scientific process requirement, right? So if this was an experiment that you had freedom in, you go, all right, name a movie. This is every single movie I've ever seen in my entire life. This is my entire discography of films that I've seen, and I am free now to look over every single one of those on a bookshelf, and then I choose it, and then I tell you, that's free will.
Yeah.
That's where a real self would be.
Yeah.
Because if there was a self, that would be the self's job. The self would be the one that went, this is every experience that I've ever had categorized. I am going to choose this movie. So that's how the self and the free will work.
So is free will your ego?
Yeah. That's, well, the illusion of free will is the same thing. But it's not, again, well, the self is... So the self kind of is an illusion in that sense, you know, because it does feel like you are a self. But in terms of free will, it doesn't feel like you have free will. Like if you really, when you stopped and looked at it, you felt that you weren't free. There's just a mysterious wind at your back.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Which is what I call intuition.
Yeah.
So that's really why we did Wellweb, why we did Bloom. It's getting people to that silent, you know, to that flow state, to get out of their brain so they can hear their intuition, or whatever you want to call it, to not make the right decisions, but to get a more full experience from this world that we're living in.
And I completely agree.
Yeah. It's just different ways of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the thing I think that is so cool about it. And I mean, you literally got to the feeling of not having free will in like 2 minutes. This isn't hard to do.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, you just need a little bit of perspective. And then on top of the perspective, or I guess you'd call it, insight. So you have insight. You have this insight that I kind of gave you in a sense of like, hey, this is a question. How does this question sit with you? And what's your first person experience of this question? Then you go like, oh, okay. So then you get that insight. And then with that insight, you can go like, oh, well, that's fucked. Like if we've got no free will, everything's going to be what it is. And then you're like, okay, well, no, there's perspective here in this. It's like, can be the basis of compassion. And it's like, this is what, when people say like, I can't sit, I can't meditate. It's yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
You can do it. You just do it. And it's like, you just need the right guidance. You need the right, you need the right instructions that are very simple.
Totally.
Then don't overthink them. Don't doubt these things. Just literally, like you said, go with your intuition.
And it is life-changing.
Fucking life-changing.
Like it really, really is. It makes your human life experience here so much fuller. From business, like personal development was my life, and I did not think it would turn into a business. And it just kind of did, because I was doing what was most pure to me. Well,
and it seems like with you that there's such a genuine want to have other people feel the way that you do.
Totally. I just want people to remember who they truly are, to get rid of the noise, because I feel like this world we live in, there's so much distraction, noise, just blah. Like even listening to music, I love listening to music, but sometimes I'm like, turn it off and just sit in silence, even though it's uncomfortable and sometimes I'm bored. I'm like, no, like just be. And I feel like there's so much stimulation, and I feel like this society that we are living in, they force that stimulation onto us all, so we can't hear ourselves, so we can't hear our most purest essence, because they don't want us in our power. They don't want us being everything that we can be, or multidimensional. They definitely don't want people like me, because I can see through everything. And people are a lot easier to control when their inner worlds are clouded by so much nonsense.
Yeah, and think about it, like, so that's what it's funny, we were talking about, like, you know, you got like Prada bags and I'm like, it's like, okay, so you got that insight, but then you love to do that side of it as well, you know. And it's like, it has to happen, you know. There's no choice. But, you know, I think about when I want something. So there's a couple things, a couple cool, like, practical insights that you can have that can, like, change your experience. So you said something before about male, female, man,
masculine,
woman, right?
Feminine.
So I was walking my dog. I just did my meditation, and it was just on my mind, you know. And then I can just remember the exact thing. It just hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. There's something, for some reason, I just thought like, oh, that's why there's transgender people.
Yeah.
There's no, like, they're not wrong. Like, they're so right. That how they feel in their body, they have no freedom to think that. There's no, like, I guess you could say they're confused from your perspective, but that's literally like, there's no other way they could be, and that's not wrong. That's just the contents of their consciousness is like delivering them. That's their self. That's who they are.
That's who they are.
And you don't have a choice. I was just like, I was very, I still think that, like, laws, you shouldn't, like, there probably should be some sensible laws around shit. Like, you probably can't have surgery till you're 18, or you probably, you know what I mean? I still think that, because, again, it's like, this is all, like, say you were a transgender woman and you were, like, fully transitioning and you wanted that. It's like, yeah, that's completely fine. That's the self. But there could be an experience where you have this, like, you know, you kind of come online and you have this kind of insight to where you're like, oh, there's not really a self, there's not really free will. That could then change the way that they act, like, based on that insight. But in terms of, like, people being, like, people are who they are. Like, they literally don't have a choice in that, you know. And to like, I can't, like, judge anybody anymore. Like, I can't.
No way.
I can't, like, hate anybody. I can't.
Same.
Like, it's fucking weird, man.
It's
like, I
so
literally
weird.
cannot hate a person. There's people there's people I fucking did hate. Like, fully wanted to just fuck them up. I was like, if I ever see this cunt again, I'll fuck him up. And then it's just like, that's gone.
Yeah.
You know, because once you sort of, I guess you, like, have that insight around it. It's like,
absolutely.
you just didn't have a choice.
Exactly. No, I'm exactly the same. I can't hate anyone. It's, no one has a choice. But going back to, like, the masculine and feminine thing, that's just like an energy within us. Like, you have a feminine and a masculine energy, and it's up to you how you want to do that. Your gender has got nothing to do with that, but how you choose to identify yourself, I guess that's comes down to, no one, it just is.
Yeah, it's
like,
just
there's no
the
it's
process.
just the way that it is. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh my god, this world, it's so crazy, but I like it today.
Yeah, today, tomorrow you won't. But that, and I think that's a thing to think about as well. Is it's just like, there's no point in holding on to anything.
No,
because like, it's just this changing constant.
I've got questions now.
Okay.
So with this understanding, my concept of relationships are completely different. So I've gone from 14 years with my high school sweetheart, codependent AF. Like, he was my world, he was my god. Like, my thoughts weren't my thoughts, they were his thoughts.
Yeah. Or like our thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was, but even the way I grew up, like, I grew up into an adult, and it was the way he lived. It wasn't the way I lived. Like, I wasn't my own human.
Yeah.
So from that to completely undoing everything, getting to the pure essence of everything, not attached to anything or anyone. So now I'm like, how do I enter back into...
Yeah, that's why I was curious around your thoughts about that.
Yeah, like how do I... So, like, you know, dating, but I can't... And it's not that I'm not scared to commit. I'm definitely not. But I just see everything as a day-by-day, moment-to-moment thing. Like, so it's like, let's just hang out until we don't. But sometimes they can't understand that. And it's, I don't know, I wonder how much do I have to play into the... when, like, I can't feel confined in any way, shape or form, but then that's not fair to the other person. Like, I don't know. I'm really playing with this right now and dancing with it, and I don't know what the right answer is.
Me neither.
Fuck, I was hoping you were going to be like, hey.
Here's what you got to do.
Yeah, because
I mean, it honestly, I feel like if you get in, you know, like you can get into relationships, like, and it's hard because you can... It's a fine line because you can just see like for my lens anyway, like the way that I look at things with, like, so this is a good example, right? So my housemate, people used to say like I was a fucking just the shittest person to live with, and I was like messy and unthoughtful and just like didn't think, and then everything the other person would do would piss me off, and then I'd get angry about, and so all of that is selfing. Like hardcore selfing. And then, you know, with my housemate now, like we've had like a couple of fight, like I fucking love the shit out of Jacko, but we've had like a couple of issues, but they were just like logistical issues, like a hot water in a shower, shit like that. Yeah, you know what I mean? But as
just
far
some
as
boundaries you need to put in place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, hey, like this is the way that what I need to kind of function. Like I've kind of figured out that I definitely need hot showers. Like if I'm working like a motherfucker and I want to come home and have a hot shower, like that's something I need to have. Of course. And I feel like I've earned it. You know what I mean?
Like, of course.
Yeah. So it's like kind of shit like that. But then that everything for me now anyway, every single thing is just, it's this, you see it through the lens of the self. And I'm like, oh, so that's a self that would want a hot shower. That's aversion to having a cold shower. Like all of this, so everything that you do becomes, like you can look at it through this lens. And then who is the person that wants a hot shower? What's that look like? Oh, that's a self. Like if you're wanting something, because essentially it's like the self underlining it all is like more of what you want, less of what you don't, you know? So I'm like, oh, so I want, I am having this aversion to cold showers. I don't want that. That's more of what or like less of what I don't kind of thing, you know? So you can kind of get trapped in these situations where you just constantly give people a pass for things. And,
I know.
And that's a little bit of a harder...
That's a whole nother...
Yeah, that's like a hard balance. And so for relationships, I mean... Yeah, ideally for me, like I would want my partner to have this same level of insight. And I feel like if you were a male on this side that had this level of insight into like the self and free will, then that again is like the basis for compassion. Like you couldn't have done anything different to what you did. I couldn't have done anything different to what I did. We are here now kind of thing. And then if your partner's got that same level of understanding, then leaving the grinds in the coffee machine, you know what I mean? Like, so all of those surface level, the interactions that would happen at like a self level, they kind of wouldn't be there. And then that feeling that you're talking about of like wanting to be free and like, then there would just be like this understanding around that from that person on the other side, because they've got that same level of understanding.
Totally, because it's difficult when they don't. Yeah. And but also when it comes to boundaries and things like that, I feel like even though we like know who we truly are, know the essence of everything, know that people get passes because we get why people are the way they are. If we have a strong sense of self and know what we need in this human experience to make it like a little bit sweeter.
Again, that's like your choices do matter.
Yeah, that's right. We can choose to have boundaries to make our experience a little bit better.
Yeah.
So boundaries for me was such a big one because I literally did give everybody a pass because I understood why they did everything.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where it was like, you're just being
a doormat.
A doormat. Yeah. Like you can't. So I got it. Like, my ex-husband did some pretty fucked up shit and I was like, I understand.
Yeah.
Like, no, like I can't be like that, but I got it. I understood it at the corest, most purest level. I understood all layers. Like I really, really did. So I had to relearn how to not see it from that level
and be a bit more selfish.
Be a little bit more selfish in this experience, this human experience that I'm having, and set some boundaries. And now setting boundaries is my favorite thing in the world. Like if I say my friends know and my family knows, everyone knows if I say yes to something, it's because I genuinely am saying yes to it. It's not because like
I'm not there yet.
Oh, it's the best feeling in the world because then if I say no, I'm saying no and they're like, cool. If I say yes, they don't come back at me with, oh, are you sure? There's no insecurity on their end. It's a better relationship for both of us.
I've got that with like a lot of people, but there's still people I don't have that with, and that's...
You've just got to do it. It's so empowering and it's so free. Like if it's a no, it's a no. And you don't have to give them an excuse. You can just be like, no. And that's scary. That's almost like that silence thing you were talking about at the start, how you felt like you needed to fill the silence.
Yeah.
You have to fill your no with words to try and validate why you're trying to say no when you can just say no.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking fun and empowering when you're like, no.
Yeah, I guess the problem is when you just don't have those people in your life that are going to accept it and understand it.
Fuck those people.
I know. Yeah, that's hard because you love those people.
You do love those people, but also they don't know how can they grow if you're always patting their fur in the right direction?
That's so true.
Like it's compassionate for you to actually say your truth and be like no, because it's giving them an opportunity to grow as well. Oh my god.
So yeah, like I probably need to get better at that sort of stuff, like and that's where I think that there's like different levels to it, to where like you can't just kind of have this like this knowledge of self and like all kind of see through what the self is and understand free will and then that's it. And I think that's a bit of a problem, and I think that's why you can see like there's 100 examples of like enlightened people where you see where they can meditate for like 27 hours, they're just gone, not there. So they are like enlightened, like they've got access to like that level of consciousness. And they can also be like violent alcoholics that will abuse their students.
This just fell out. We're back in.
Yeah. Happens all the time. And they can abuse their students and they can commit these like sexual assaults on people, and because that's what's fucking crazy is like the whole guru thing, like
people putting other people on pedestals is the worst. And I went through a phase where I was getting all this like knowledge and like channeling, and I would like be so angry. I'd be like, I don't want to be put on a pedestal. I don't want to have to be the one to explain this shit to people. Like, don't put me on a pedestal. I'm not better. We're all the same. Like we're all on the same level. So I feel like anyone... I love the analogy of even in business, like the boss isn't up the front and everyone's behind them. Like the boss is like either behind them or with them in the line. And I feel like that's important. I feel like that's such a spiritual red flag when somebody has put themselves on a pedestal because that's separate then. Instantly they're separating you from themselves when really it's all...
Yeah, it's just all the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting you do say that.
Yeah, because that then, just because you could reach some kind of like meditative state of enlightenment, like that
Doesn't make you better.
Nah, and then there's still this level of, like, I still have so much growing to do as a person. Like, I'm fucking nowhere, you know what I mean?
No
like,
one will ever have it figured out.
Nah.
Ever. It's a constant expanding all the time. All the time. Constant contrast. And that's what makes this human experience so sweet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the meaning, you know what I mean? Is like, you'll just never nail it.
Never.
And it's like people will always ask me when I'm meditating if I have like these experiences and shit, and like there was a point where that I was chasing that in a way, like, and that would be like my metric of did I do it right?
Yeah.
You know, but like if you just sit and sort of do it, that's the
totally
the point, you know.
I feel like because you're still doing guided meditations, you're not allowing yourself to go there as well.
That's why I do the float tanks.
Oh, okay, yeah, the float tanks.
Have
do
you
have
done that?
Yeah.
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 Well, you have those experiences all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
The one experience that I have had that's been the most profound in the float tanks is that I explain this as, like, you know when you're driving a car, right? And a bug hits your windscreen. And you focus on the windscreen. Or like right now, if I like try, well, the glasses are probably a bit too close to my eyes, but like you could focus on, like, I can see my hand and then see, like, focus back to you. There's like the self feels like this invisible boundary that you create around your body. So like, and for a lot of people, like for me, when I'm being just me, I feel like I'm in my head. I'm not kind of anywhere else, like, and I could feel like, this is like the boundary, this is like the internal and the external. And then in the float tank, it's like dark and there's no sound and there's no nothing, but there's still a boundary. Like when you first get in there, and there's other times where I'm in there and it feels the exact same size the whole time. It doesn't feel any different, even though it's black. I can't see anything, and that's kind of what the self feels like you stay inside. It's like, I'm in here, the world's out there. And then I've probably, again, like the time thing's pretty hard to like put a time on it, but yeah, there's probably like 20 minutes of one session where like there was no boundary at all. There was no small, no big, no, there was like literally just
nothingness.
Nothing.
You're in the void.
But it's just huge. It's like this huge expanse.
The void is so great. I love going there.
So how do you go there?
To the void?
Yeah.
I choose to go to the void. I'm in control of I know, you've ruined my way of thinking about everything. I used to think like 3 minutes ago that I was in control of. No, I am. It's because I'm dancing between the layers. So in meditation, as much as you have control of your body here, like you can still choose, right? Fuck.
No, you can't.
Oh my God. This is I'm never going to be able to live in this world again.
So I guess it's like, so you do choose, but it's not your choice. There's no
I get it. But
in
just
the
for the sake of
exactly.
telling a story, fuck.
Yeah, hey, you're doing it to yourself.
I know, but this is the way my brain works because I like, anyway.
No. I know what you're saying. You're catching yourself though.
I am, and it's so annoying because I see all layers now. This is the problem. Now I forget what I was even going to say.
In meditation, you choose.
Yes. So say if I am having experiences in meditation, I don't ever get scared. And say some people might see scary things or whatever, I still have control in those realms to, be like, no, I'm not experiencing this or I'm not doing this. So I can choose to go to the void and just have a break, because when I meditate now, it's no chill. It's not a chill out time for me.
Really?
No, I shut my eyes and it's like, here we go. Like, it's so loud, if not louder. The astral me is like so strong. There's no chill. Like, there's no chill.
And again, like that's there's no, I guess, choice in what's being delivered.
No, that's true from that perspective.
Yeah. So when you go there, like the things that are being delivered to you, like that's
I don't get a choice. That's still intuition. The messages
that
I see, the communication that I have, or I can choose consciously in that realm to go to the void to have a break. And it's so expansive. But everything is expansive. And I feel like the more expansive it is, then you find portals and you can go through things and it's like, yeah.
I mean, I definitely don't feel like I can just do it every time. It's not like I don't have 100% success rate on it, but I'm sort of not really chasing that either.
No.
Like at this point. But I mean, it's fucking hard not to be yourself. Like, and that's the thing that I guess you kind of accept. And it's just like, you've got to just keep monitoring.
Oh, okay. I've had a thought. So this must be a download then. So when you're not yourself, like what you're trying to say, like the purest essence, which is what I call intuition.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know if this is going to make sense or not. So the intuition, that part of you, I feel like I've gone and delved into that, which has opened up more.
Yes. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yes. So I feel like...
Yeah, you've just spent more time there.
Yes. Yeah. And so from that space in there, when I go to meditation, I delve into that space.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
There's worlds. There's so many worlds from that space.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, I feel like I can understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And that it's I'm sure that if I went and did a float tank, like, so shout out Freedom Float, that's where I go. It's just
Is that in Mermaid?
No, it's just in Burleigh. Have you ever been there?
No.
Definitely.
I will.
I'll book you a session.
Thank you.
But yeah, like, I'm sure I don't do it that often. And I'm sure if I did and I went there, like you
I
said,
feel like
with that
you
intention,
absolutely with intention, you would go there.
But it's hard not to be yourself. I get in there, I think about jiu-jitsu, I think about my writing, I think about my relationships, because and you know, thinking helps, you know, but it's like I think that the fundamental, like the ground floor thing is just, it comes back to like that suffering. Like, am I suffering whenever I get to that point of like, and by suffering I mean like, am I wanting something so much? Like, what did I want recent? Oh, well, like fucking sex. Like that's such a strong impulse. You want that thing, you connect to that feeling, you connect to that want, and then that's a real hard one to let go of. But if you resist that urge, then it goes away. You know, so it's just like this. But
that's also energy. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. So if you do actually resist that urge, that is creative energy. It
takes energy to resist that urge.
That's right. But you can also, with that energy of desire or whatever it is that is coming up within you, you can, like, that is the energy that literally creates worlds. Like, it creates human beings.
Yeah.
So if you can create human beings with that energy, we're going into Tantra now.
No, that's all right. I have no experience with Tantra at all.
Well, it's basically that. So it's energy. It's meditation, essentially. It's a state of being. It's that desire, that urge that you're talking about that comes up, that is an energy that comes up the spine, essentially, which is Kundalini energy. There's so many ways to describe it. But
like chakras and shit.
No.
Different.
Kind of. Like, yeah, it does go up through the chakra system, but...
That's a different thing.
Well, yeah. So, but that energy, like, you can use that energy to be creative. Like, if you're a writer or whatever, like...
The muse.
Like, that energy is the most creative life force energy in the world. So if you can learn to control that desire, you're actually way more powerful.
Yeah, because there's I was just talking on one of the podcasts we did this week with Justin Bogle. He is like this motocross dude. He's like won a championship. He's like one of the best dudes in the world.
Yeah.
And but his whole life he's like made music. He's a fucking rapper. He's a Native American kid and like dope rapper. and he's like sheltered that, like he's hid that from the world because it was in the industry. It's like
that makes me so sad.
Yeah, same. Now that I like feel like this, I'm like, fuck that, it breaks my heart. You know?
No one like,
and that's the self that stops that.
Yeah. All I want is for people just to be who they truly are. Like that makes me the happiest in the world. Yeah. Like, and fit that guy. But is he doing it now? Please.
Oh, like he still does it, but it's not like he doesn't do it all the way as hard as he could, you know, because like the industry, like if you're not winning races and you're making music, the industry and the media and the shit in that world is like, you spend less fucking time making fucking rap music, bro, and you need to fucking train because you're not fucking winning, you know. So, but I guess the takeaway there is like it takes energy to stifle who you really are.
Yes, it does. It does. And it takes you so off course.
It's like the toxic energy, yeah.
It's disgusting. So that's when you start getting sick. I'm not saying that's the only reason you get sick for all the haters out there. Like, I'm just saying it could be a reason why you get sick. It could be a reason why bad things keep happening to you because you're going against that purest essence of you, your intuition of what I call it.
We're totally on the same page in that sense.
100%. So like this poor guy, like how could he be getting the most out of his life? Like his life could be so much more sweeter, like his service to the world and contribution to the world and his vibration blueprint to the world could be so much more fuller if he was doing what his soul actually wanted him to do.
Yeah. And so I think about, with like sex, like I've had a long period of time off sex. And like it's actually hard to like, you have to like push that energy away. You know what I mean? And it's like it's like such a good test though. And like, I think that's why you look at like monks and priests and that sort of shit. Like that's why they're charged with that assignment, because it's like, if there's no self, where is like the self is the spring of desire essentially. You know what I mean? So it's
you should look into Tantra then if you're doing that, because Tantra isn't what people think it is, where it's like two people.
A little bit.
Well, I'm probably not like the most,
fair
you know, I don't know everything, but I know a little bit. I think we talk about it on Wellweb as well. Like it's, more of an individual energy. Like Tantra is an energy. It's not like the different poses you do when you're banging someone. It's not like that. It's the energy.
So that's probably fun.
Yes. So much fun. Let's be honest. But when you say that energy that comes up and you want to try and like push it down and like push it away, the key is to immerse yourself in educating yourself around Tantra, because you can use that energy for different things, for manifesting things, for so much more than what you even realize. So you're in a prime position right now to learn about it and use it for the choices while here on earth to have a better human experience.
So it's almost like you've got the energy that's present for like wanting to have sex, and then instead of having sex you just like sit in that energy and you like use and you can you can also heal your chakras. You can heal not completely heal yourself, but like make yourself feel better. Like if you bring that energy through your body, it's like the whole chakra system. We're getting all that's all right.
You know, but like you can do so much with this pure energy that is bubbling up inside of you. It's the attachments to that energy of what we think we need to do.
That you create around it.
So you're like, I've got to go bang someone. Like, well, no. If you wanted to step outside of that thought, you could actually create a new narrative around what you do with that energy.
So I was born at 6 a.m. on the 22nd of July.
Am I reading your birth chart?
Yeah, I've never had that ever. So
okay, well, you're gonna have to do
whatever. I'm here for it.
It's gonna take a little bit just until I get it. So basically, what I'm doing right now for those tuning in at home, so when I went through my version of rock bottom, I taught myself how to read astrology charts. Did you say the 22nd
of July, 88.
I'm older than you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah? 6 a.m.
On the dot?
On the dot,
Okay.
my mum said. I text mum before we started because you asked me before.
Do you know, I do this like with Uber drivers.
Really?
Because I love birth charts and finding out people's birth charts. So, you know, for example, you're a Cancer.
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini. But that's just your sun sign. Like there's so much more to it, right?
Yeah.
So once I get there, so hang on, 6 a.m. I'll do it as soon as I get to here. What town?
Cairns.
You were born in Cairns.
Cairns, mate.
Cairns is banging.
Cairns is pretty fun. I need to go back. I'm overdue.
Are you allowed?
Yeah.
In this current world we live in?
Yeah, I reckon we could actually go to Cairns.
In Queensland.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Let's go.
Here's your birth chart. Oh, wow. Okay, this is fun. This is interesting.
But see, do you have too much context?
What do you mean?
Like you've got so much context of like how I think and who I am. Like, does that convolute the
No,
waters?
this isn't woo-woo intuitive shit. This is
just like straight
facts.
off the chart. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So your sun... Everyone's going to get so bored at this.
Nah, heaps of people listen.
Do you know? Yeah. So your sun is in Cancer. Your rising is also Cancer. So you've got 2 planets in Cancer, which means you like have a lot of Cancer energy within you. Moon is in Libra. Mercury is Cancer as well. Fuck. Do you know my Mercury's in Cancer?
What's that? So what does that mean?
Okay. Sorry. I'll start explaining it. So each planet represents something, like an aspect of your personality. So for example, sun, that's kind of like ego. Moon is more subconscious. Mercury is how you communicate. Venus is how you relate. So relations, relationships. I'll just go with that. And then Mars would be more of a passion, doing work energy, right? So this is just me doing the top 5. There's so much more to it. Like I could talk about it all day.
Yeah.
But your sun is in Cancer, moon is in Libra. So subconsciously, because your moon is in Libra, you need things to be quite balanced in order for you to be your best self.
I would completely agree with that.
Totally. And also subconsciously, even if you think it doesn't matter, subconsciously this does matter. You want things to be aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Yeah. And you
just look at ask Ronan, do I want things to look a certain way?
Yeah. Well, that's...
Do you get annoyed with how I like things to look a certain way sometimes?
Not really, no.
Okay, good boy.
Good answer.
He's a very, very good young fella.
We love you.
Baby bear. Little seal.
So, yeah, and subconsciously, what else? So, Libra, you would want things to be fair. You would see an even side to things. Like that's why you understand why people do what they do and you're okay with that. And subconsciously, you don't really want to rock the boat. Like you don't want to hurt people. Like you which is why you're still getting used to saying no to...
But I'm also fucking down for conflict.
Totally. But conflict, like healthy conflict.
Yeah.
Like I want to see both sides of the...
Well, I feel like I want fair I want conflict when it's fair.
Totally.
When it's warranted.
That is absolutely a subconscious like Libra thing to do. Like, and if something's not right, you will stand up for it and be like, hang on a second. So that's that. So Mercury's in Cancer, which is me.
So that's communication.
Communication is Mercury. So Cancer is like the crab, right? So think of what a crab does. It goes into its shell and it will think a million thoughts in its head, in its little shell. And when it feels like it's got the answer, it's going to come out of its shell and it's going to spit fire and facts at people.
Yeah.
But once we go inside to actually think it through. So, for example, in relationships, you know, someone might be like, I want to talk about like, this is pissing me off, blah, blah, blah. But like for you and your blueprint and the way you're made up, it's actually a good idea to go and think about things first and go over it first. And then once you're ready to come out and have a conversation about it, do it that way. You can't be pushed. You can't be pushed.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And then your Venus is in Gemini and that's actually the same as me. So that's like relationships and you need conversation like this. Like it needs to be exciting and spontaneous and fun. You don't want it to be monotonous. Like you just want it to be like just free and fun and flirty. I guess. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I do I feel like I like to have like open conversation. I definitely don't like people to hold back shit. I think that comes to like judgment and stuff. Like I don't really ever want to judge people for what they say. Like, yeah, fuck do you, bro. Like that's kind of my attitude towards shit.
Yeah. And then Mars in Aries. So I don't think I can say this.
Yeah, do it.
No. So that's why you would be finding it quite difficult to push down the desires to have sex, basically, because Aries are really horny people.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, but also you say if you have an idea around work of what you want to do, you'll be like, I'm doing that, and then you'll go do it.
Yeah.
Like, and you just get it done, which I feel like that's a really good placement for you to have, because when it comes to business and things like that, if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. But there's a lot of Cancer in you as well, so the way to nurture yourself and the way to show up better in the world is to really honor your alone time inside your shell. Make sure your home base is like a really nurturing space where you can go and, meditate, think through things. Like it's really important to have all of that, so that when you do come out into the world to be your best self, you are rejuvenated. Yeah,
that's why it's funny that you say that, because my housemate, like anytime we've had our shit, he's just like, you just really need your own space. Like you're that guy. And I've never been that guy. Like, and I think maybe that's why my life has probably got a little bit better when I've started to, or it's funny. It's like Gypsy tales. It's like I was that guy, but it's like the whole time I was that fucking dude, but life wasn't going that well. Like I was having all these crazy experiences, but like internally there wasn't a lot of like peace and like satisfaction. And then it's not until like I spent literally a year after that breakup of like living with my chick, and then once I got to live by myself and took that time, and man, I wanted to reach out. I was like, come stay, come cuddle, come you want all those things. Or like, I'm gonna go out and party, I'm gonna go see friends, once you like stop those urges and just like sit in like alone time and just be by yourself, the
uncomfortableness,
and like then you figure out like who you are, and you can see like the patterns, and you can see the patterns of thought, the patterns of desire, the patterns of attraction, the good conversations that you had. Like you've kind of got that time to,
and like what you said, like now you feel that peace and that contentment, and like prior to that, when you were having all these crazy experiences, there was something that was missing inside. And I feel like a lot of people live like that and don't really realize how much more peaceful they can actually feel. And the way to feel peaceful is to do what Cancers do best and have that alone time and go within. Because if you can just sit in that uncomfortableness for just a tiny little bit, like you can't put a price on this peace. You cannot put a price on this peace that I'm feeling right now, and nobody can take that away from me. And if I ever, it's a good starting point as well, like, or a good measurement, this peace, because when you're not feeling peace, you're like, okay, well, what's going on? I'm not feeling peace. I need to go back into my little cave, have a moment, really sort out what's going on, have a moment of self-reflection, self-awareness, and then you come out so much better. Yeah.
So what's the background of astrology charts, and like do you know who figured that shit out and like where it all kind of comes from?
No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no.
But see, like, so that's the problem for me, right?
Yeah, I know.
So like, I need to
you
know,
need to know.
Like reality. I need to know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, what's behind
I'm sure you
that.
could look it up.
Yeah.
Like, and I probably have read this once, but I don't retain the information because it's not important to me. Like, I just know how to read astrology charts now.
Yeah.
Same with tarot cards. Like, I should have bought my tarot cards.
Yeah, I've never done that either.
Really?
No, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I read that, or like I hear that, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like there's like all those things. Yeah, that's what that feels like to be me in a way. But you can, there's like a personal bias that you've got towards that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I'm like, so how the fuck they figure that out?
Yeah.
But
so I guess it's based on energies, like. I don't know. I haven't really thought, like, because, I don't know, because my mind goes to a million places with the planet, what it is. Is it flat? Is it not? Like, I don't know. Like, there's so many curious questions that I like to have with myself and explore. So when it comes to astrology, I feel like where I'm at right now, I don't know. I think it's an energy of certain planets and certain signs mean certain things, and if they're placed a certain way, you're more likely to have that sort of energetic makeup.
Wait, Rones, Google where does astrology come from, or astrology charts or something, to see where it ends up. Because that's the thing is, I'm like, I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's sort of
well, if you look back at like even like the pyramids and stuff like
Babylon,
that.
okay. Because this is the thing about like like you talk about like Buddhism, like there was no science behind that. That was like first person science that turns out to be right. Astrology originated in Babylon far back in antiquity, with the Babylonians developing their own form of horoscopes around 2,400 years ago. Then around 2,100 years ago, astrology spread to the eastern Mediterranean, becoming popular in Egypt. Which at the time was under the control of a dynasty of Greek kings. It gets modified very much into what we think of as the Greek style of astrology, which essentially is the modern style of astrology. The Greek style is the foundation of astrology that goes through the Middle Ages and into modern Europe, modern India.
It's so funny how your brain needs to know that, whereas I read that, I'm like, that's so boring.
But I can't subscribe to something that I don't at least try and
I think
understand.
this is really good. I feel like this is from like a spirituality point of view, whatever we're talking about right now. You've got a really good perspective on it for the people who need to know. Yeah. And I've got a good perspective on it as people who just know. Yes. And I feel like the conversation we have
is to try and meet in the middle.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. I think we're doing a great job.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I wonder what go down a little bit. No, sorry, Rones, slow down, mate. Fucking easy, Tiger. Jesus Christ. Are you fucking serious?
He's up and about.
You need to go up, and you need to just do it way slower. Oh God, go back. Let's go back to Google. Let's see if we can find out. And just again, slowly. Time.com. Let's go to that. Are zodiac signs real? Nah, actually, go to wiki. Go back. Underneath, history of astrology. Yeah, I've literally just never looked at this ever. Astrological beliefs in correspondences between celestial observations and terrestrial events have influenced various aspects of human history, including worldviews, language, and many elements of social culture. Evidence of astrology dates back to the 3rd millennium.
Is this good for your brain?
Yeah, I could fucking read. I'll read like 5 books on this shit. I read books on shit I don't want like or you know what I mean. There's no. I just want to know about it.
Yeah.
You know? What can I take out of here?
Take something for the people.
Go back, and let's go to that time thing. It might be a bit more direct. Yeah, that one. Zodiac's real. First of all, no one knows. Well, some that's why this shit gets a bad rap, because like the horoscopes that you see in like the fucking Cairns Post.
Oh, that's so stupid. And this is the thing. This is what it's not. It's not just you're a Cancer. Everything we say about cancers is no. Yeah. Like, okay, this your brain might like this. Astrology, actually all of the presidents of the United States and some of the biggest business people in the world have a personal astrologer. They say millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. Even now that you understand astrology and the way that the planets are and how it's working every single day, musicians, they launch music based on certain dates. I launch businesses based on certain dates and times. I do it at the exact time that's going to be beneficial for the energies, like, to launch a business at that time. Like, I won't do it when Mercury's retrograde. There's so many layers to it, but if you actually have a good astrologer, you can just learned so much. Like, it's not just this is who you are. It's like, let's work with the energies of the layers to...
The one thing that I fully fuck with in astrology is not being able to sleep on a full moon.
Yeah.
And like weird dreams on a full moon.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's one thing I've always...
I love full moons.
Yeah, see...
I go crazy.
Yeah, you chicks like that shit, eh?
No, I love it.
What do you like about a full moon?
Well, I'm kind of a bit witchy, so on a full moon I can do some rituals.
Yeah.
Dance naked under the full moon. And
that's all just great shit to do. Like, you know what I mean?
So much fun.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's like kind of the underlying message is it's like do what feels good to you.
Totally. And the moon is actually quite feminine. The sun is quite masculine. So the reason why I like the moon is because like it taps into my feminine side more. And I love my feminine side. Being in business, like I'm a businesswoman, I have to show up and be a boss bitch every single day. I have to be in my masculine a lot. So it's really important for me every single day to tap into my feminine energy, to not soften, and it's not weak in any way, shape or form. No. It's just more flowing, and I much prefer the feminine, but I have to make a conscious effort to do it in this business world that I'm living in. So when it's a full moon, I feel like that's
your chance
when I'm
to be,
well, not my chance to be. I have a choice every single day, but like I feel most feminine when it is a full moon.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. I can't hate on that in any way at all. What business wise, like what's your days looking like? Are you just fucking all hands on deck, like hustle all the time, or have you got like a crew that's sort of working with you?
I've got a really good team around me.
Yeah,
the best team ever. So
how many of you guys are working on Wellweb?
We've got 4 people plus Chloe and I.
Yeah.
So Chloe and I are basically just like the ideas people. Then we have like just a good solid system and team of people who just like keep it running.
Yeah.
I feel like it's got to where I want it to in Australia. Where I want it to go next, I feel like I don't have the vocabulary or the words to describe it because I don't believe it exists yet.
Yeah.
But I just know that we want to rebuild Wellweb. So it's a video streaming platform at the moment. I want it to be so much more than that. I want it to be like a full universe basically that you can go into. But at the moment we have to build it on an Amazon server.
Yeah.
Amazon is still part of a system. We still have to have like a third party to go through to host our website. I want to rebuild Wellweb on like a crypto server, like a blockchain server, to make it a decentralized internet. I don't want it to be owned by nothing.
Yeah.
I want it to be like this uncensored
sovereign thing
like me, but basically in the tech space though. So that's why now we're looking to go to America, because I don't feel like I can do it here in Australia. And we'll go to America, and because we're in flow, we'll find the right people who are going to show up on our doorstep and be like, hey, we can do what you need to do, and then more great team members will be around us. But in the meantime, everyone in Australia is doing such a great job. We're just producing awesome content. I just oversee things. I work all the time, but I have a really good boundary like system, like where people know not to annoy me and when to ask me questions, and if I don't want to answer I won't. But I could work all day if I wanted to. But I make a conscious effort not to.
That's the thing that I struggle with. Because there's just like there's so much shit to do. Like we've done 3 podcasts this week.
That's
like
a lot.
9 hours of content. So that's like 9 hours of me sitting here talking.
That's a lot.
But that's what it takes.
Yeah.
It's fucking gnarly.
What's your goal with this?
I don't have a goal. The goal is just like, I'm really big like on, and this is from a book I probably talk about in most podcasts, but it's called Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And
has Mitch read that?
Yeah, I gave it to Mitch.
No way.
Yeah,
okay.
Mitch did the podcast.
Yeah, that changed it. Like he loved that.
Yeah. Oh, it's fucking incredible. You should. Do you read much?
I do, but I'm going through a phase of not.
Yeah. Okay. Why is that? Just not feeling it.
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to dance.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. Yeah. So I read this book called Atomic Habits, and basically there was just this one bit from it that just fucking, again, insight, you know, like once you hear it, you can't unhear it. But basically said that you've got 8 dudes on the start line of the 100 meter final at the Olympics. That's 8 of the best dudes in the world. They all have the same goal. One person wins. One person achieves their goal. So essentially, the goal ain't shit. It's the processes that you put in place that deliver the goal.
Great.
So for me, there is no goal.
Yeah.
And again, that would be like striving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
it's the journey, not the destination.
yeah, exactly. And I've always kind of, that was always like the way I framed it, you know, like, oh, it's about the journey. It's not, but that's like, that can be hard when the journey gets hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, over the last like 3 years of, and you know what, like there's a point too where with the podcast, like I wasn't all in, like I fucking worked real hard at it, but I definitely wasn't all in because like there was still that ego around it, you know, like I don't want to look a certain way. I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want people to think this. And that shit just stifles you, man. Like exactly what you said, you know,
Totally.
like we completely agree on that. And then as soon as like this insight became like really, really clear to me, and that the concept of free will didn't, like who I am, what I'm going to say, like fuck, I got no control. But what I do have control over in my mind is just like, I take in this information, then I apply that information, I make these choices, even though they're not really mine to make. I try to just put myself in a position every day to where I can execute these processes that would let me succeed. And it's like, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I've got like no idea where that will take me, you know, but you know, there's a thing in my head now where we've got a studio in America, and then I've got a producer over there that's just a friend of mine, and then he's like got this little room that we use, and that's not the ideal setup. Like ideally we have this.
Yeah.
You know, so now in my head I'm like, all right, that's probably best case scenario is we have this studio over there, blah blah blah. So that's where I'll go. So that's not, it's not a goal. So that kind of becomes a goal.
Totally.
But it's like a result of the process.
Yeah.
Like the process illustrates what the next goal should be.
Absolutely. And I feel like, I feel like I'm the same. Like the next goal for Wellweb is rebuilding it on a blockchain server. But that's just been like a natural progress.
Part of the process.
Yeah. That's just kind of where we're at now. That's the next logical thing that we need to do.
Yeah.
But I'm not striving. In saying that though,
But there is a healthy amount of striving.
well, when I say strive, the goal is still the same. I still want my personal goal, and Wellweb's goal is still the same. I still want people to use that tool as a way to remember who they truly are.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the essence of it. But I guess that's the purest thing.
That's like your north.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you can, there's I'm reading a book at the moment called Beyond Entrepreneurship, and they talk about this. There's like it's a fucking good book. Like I don't like business books that much. It's not my thing. I'd rather read like a novel or fucking some history shit.
Yeah.
But on the recommendation of a friend, I started reading this book. It's fucking brilliant. They've got like this kind of blueprint of like how you should like build a company, right? And they said that basically you've got you have to have like these values and like this purpose of the business, and that's like your guiding star, right?
Okay.
And then so the analogy they use is like you've got this guiding star, and then you've just got these missions that you have to accomplish along the way, like and so you're walking towards a star, and then you've got like a mountain range that gets in your way, and then so the goal, or like the mission essentially, with north in sight, is just to climb this particular mountain that's in front of you, and then you might go like down the other, then the mission becomes to go down this end of the mountain, and then there's another mountain, or then there's a river, or then so it's just like the north stays the same, and you don't, and it's almost like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and you just know it's not even there.
Yeah.
All it is just literally a guiding star that you kind of use.
I get that.
So
I like that.
Yeah, and so that's where I just don't really want to attach myself to, because there's a problem with attaching yourself to
anything.
Well, anything in general, but
I know.
a goal, you know, like if you don't reach it fast enough, if you're not growing as fast as you are, and I've fucking been there. Like I've experienced a full range of shit by trying to, you know, do this podcasting, and then you know,
it forces. It feels gross in my body. Like I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling of forcing. It's gross.
Yeah, but it's hard not to do. And again, it sort of comes back to that perspective of like what those things actually are. So,
wow, how long have we been talking?
Nearly 3 hours.
That actually went so quick.
It's insane.
I wonder if it did for everybody else. Do you reckon?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah, it was pretty rad. It was cool for me personally.
Yeah.
So thanks for letting me talk so much.
No.
I probably talked more than you did.
That's fine.
But
no, I enjoyed it because I do many podcasts, but I'm always like, I hate how it's always. I don't hate it, but it's like I'm saying the same things over and over again now. Like I always, before I do a podcast, I'll set an intention of how I want it to be, and I wanted to speak differently. Like I wanted to show a different side to me in this podcast, and I feel like I did. Yeah. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
No, I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for letting me get all my weird thoughts out. Because yeah, it's hard. Like I don't get to talk about this stuff too much. And like when you said, when we were chatting before it, you're like, oh, do you talk about this stuff much? It's like, I mean, time and a place.
You dabble.
Yeah, time and a place.
You put the tip in.
Yeah, just the tip.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like cool. You know, you're on that level in a sense experientially with like some of the stuff that you've been through. So to get to have someone on the other side that's like, okay, I've got like the experience, like I can feel what you're talking about, but I can't really explain it in the way that you can. Whereas like, yeah, even the astrology, I'm like, okay, cool. So before we go there, like I need to really figure this shit out on this end.
Yeah.
When's just the visas and trying to get over to the States?
Yeah, as soon as we can get a visa, we're out of here.
Yeah.
Which should be okay because we've got business there.
Yeah.
So that's how all our development team is in America. Yeah. So it should be fine to get there. And all the investors are over there. All the conscious investors are over there.
Is that a hard thing here to like get people to invest into this space?
We've had a lot of interest around it, but it's not aligned. I don't want to force something or take money off someone who isn't of the same, not integrity. Yeah, maybe integrity.
Their north isn't the same.
Yeah, that's right. Like, you know, we're not, yes, money's great, but the true essence of, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this to make a better world. So, you know, money's still nice to buy things.
We still need it too to run the business.
Totally. And I want more money so I can express this creative idea that we have in our heads to its fullest. Yeah. But I want the money to come from the same source as where we're coming from. Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think that I'm the same on that. Like, yeah, money's good. I want to like live comfortably, you know, like get all my own shit and be. But we
like,
also don't need much to live.
No, totally.
Yeah, like I don't need much at all. I don't even have a car. Like this is how detached I am from everything. I sold my car. I was like, meh. And now I just get Ubers everywhere. Do you know how fun that is?
Have you ever heard that song, Tycho? No. You know that song, Rose?
Put it on.
Tycho, that Uber everywhere. We'll play it after the podcast because then it'll fuck YouTube. That's what. Yeah, I went through that when I lived in Hollywood. It was just like I had this big truck. It was just impossible to park. I was like, I'm fucking done with this thing. I just Ubered everywhere.
But what I love too in Ubers is I can get all my emails and admin done in the Uber. So by the time I get home, I'm just living my best life.
Yeah, that is a fucking point.
Yeah, I'm like, you got to have boundaries. So you might struggle with that with the Uber driver. But I was like, you know, I had to set a boundary with my Uber driver on the way here because he had the news blaring. And I don't listen to the news. And I was like, fuck. I was getting so worked up. I was like, this is your lesson, Molly. You have a choice. Just ask. I was like, are you listening to the news? He's like, yep. I'm like, all I could hear was COVID deaths, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't want to listen to it. Yeah. And I just said, I'm about to have a panic attack. Can you please turn it off? And he put a song on And then the rest of the trip, I was just like this.
Well, when I was doing the America thing and the Uber thing in America.
I know, but I forgot my earphones today. Like, anyway.
That's what I'm first. I'm like, huh?
Yeah. Oh, good one.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
See, sometimes I don't mind talking to them though, because they have some nuggets that I need to hear in that moment. Like it's like sometimes I don't mind it, but yeah. Anyways.
Well, 3 hours. That was great.
It was great.
I'll put on the Uber Everywhere song for you. But yeah, Wellweb. So give us the shout out. Like, where can people
Yeah, just
go?
wellweb.com. It's just a platform at the moment. It's an awesome video streaming platform. I know you've got a lot of men who I'm guessing. So there's actually a lot of really good men's content on there, from like breath work, meditation, yoga, just lots of things. It's just like a education portal to dive into. Instead of watching Netflix, just turn Wellweb on. Done. And at the moment, just with COVID, we've got 1 month free for everyone as well.
So, sick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Molly, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
You. Do it again do it again sometime down the future. See where we're both at.
I know. I'll be full alien by then.
Love it.
Oh, wow.
What are you doing?
I can't believe how quick that goes. Hey.
What are you doing? It does go quick. Probably not for Ronan, but... If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.